All right, morning everybody. Welcome to Hardware Center for another workshop or session. We're going to do a theory session today on restoring or renovating furniture. It's not typically applicable to antiques. I mean, that shouldn't be the motivation here. It's a case of trying to fix up things that are broken, generally broken, poor workmanship, mass-produced furniture, and the likes. And then, of course, at some point you may evolve into, managing antiques and old pieces of furniture and stuff like that. But a cautionary note, you don't want to go too bravado on this or too enthusiastically into it, because if you hit an antique and you get it wrong, that's game over, okay? And if there's value attached to it, you touching it in the wrong way or working on it in the wrong way can devaluate that item to basically scrap, okay? Firewood. All right, so we're going to just have a look at, doing repairs and maintenance and general work. I'm going to introduce you to some tools that I would suggest and recommend that you can work with. I'm very interactive. Please, if you've got questions, you ask. If you don't ask questions, you're the one that walks away empty-handed. Okay, I think the Godfathers know how this works. They can fully understand how to ask questions, and they know how to bug me until they get their answers. So that's good. You guys should pick up that lead and follow it. All right, good. So my name is Bunny Croucamp. I'm a cabinet maker. I have a little workshop in Sebenza. So that's my little paradise. That's where I cause mischief and play with wood and all that kind of stuff, okay? In the proper sense of the word, okay? So I guess you're here because you want to find out how to maintain and look after furniture. Okay. Any specific thing that anybody looking for? Anybody? Or anything you wanted to know at this point? No. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah, this is it. People don't believe in going off to a proper tradesperson to get these things fixed. You want to save a buck or two, and you start putting metal fixtures in place. And the worst thing you can get is when they use no more nails, and that arrives at your front door. Or what's it? Contact adhesive. That's man, that will make you cry. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's have a look and see what we can. So I think maybe what I go through, I'll bear you in mind, and then we'll discuss it, and I'll let you know why metal fasteners are not a good thing in wood. Full stop. Okay. And we'll have a chat about that. Okay. Or Pratley Putty. Yeah, look, Pratley Putty has got its place, okay, in terms of repairs. If you've got a particular piece of furniture, maybe there's a molding on it, that molding is broken away and it's lost. They put it on top of a counter somewhere and then eventually got swept off and it's just disappeared. Yeah, then it's good because you can kind of mold that thing back again and just color over it. So that's probably one benefit. But to try and adhere things together, it's not the thing to use. Okay. Yeah. Is it still? Yeah, but oh, okay, yeah, of course. But so obviously it hasn't lasted. So yes, that's right. Yeah. Well, this is the thing with Pratley Putty. You can actually put a bit of a stain in it or a pigment, and you can color it to try and match the wood that you're working with. But nowadays you go to different hardware places and so on, and you'll get an epoxy type, a two-part, where it's like a little sausage. It's got the outside and the hardness on the inside, and you can mix that up, and you can get them in different colors to match your wood. So there's a number of things that you can get out there in products that are available to work with it. I bought one tube and I just thought, yeah, I'd give it a try. It was good. It really worked well. I mean, the application I used it for was for the potholes for your hinges on chipboard melamine cupboards. So what happened is that pothole, or what's it, the pot? Yeah, it ripped out with the hinge. And I just built that up with this epoxy type stuff. It was perfect. I've not used it again. In fact, yesterday I saw the tube and I thought, oh, you're my old friend. I haven't seen it in probably about 10 years. And it was still fresh in the tube. So it shows you it will work, but there's applications for it. But as you move along, newer products, newer ways, better ways, so you start adapting. So that's one thing you've got to do. You've got to be very adaptive in what you work with. Okay. All right. Okay, good. Anyone else before we fire off? Okay, I'm not going to ask for introductions or anything. I know most of the guys, and if I don't know you, don't worry. I'm not being rude if I say you, so forgive me. I can't remember everybody, because familiar faces and so on. Okay, right. So let's press on. Please ask your questions. Okay, so that we can sort of make it easier for you when you go back and you want to try and attempt to repair, or whatever the case may be. I take it that maybe some of you actually do repair work already. Anybody? Yeah, a handful of you guys. So it's probably a couple of new things that you're trying to pick up as you go along, all right? But open forum, ask your questions. Yep. All right, good. Okay, so hardware center, this is where we're at. All right, so we're going to do furniture restoration. Just before I move on, just to point out some of the other course offerings, workshop offerings we've got this month. We had the kitchen cabinet build. I think maybe one or two of you attended that with me. So we're busy with furniture restoration for today. Next week will be the dovetail jig. That's the UJK dovetail jig. If you guys are ever interested in doing that, I've played around with the jig myself. It's a nice jig. So it takes a quarter inch bit. It's not the half-inch bits now. Okay, really nice to set up. It's about 5 or 6 different dovetail types that you can put together, and it's a nice little machine. So if you want to have a look at it, come and watch it being demoed. Then what I would urge you to do is to come back on the 28th of September. There's a topic that's going to be discussed by Dylan. He's going to do shellac finishing. Okay, so anything and any questions that you have with regards to shellac, you can fire that across to him and let him see where he can help you and answer. So shellac is my go-to. And if you want to move into restoration of furniture, whether it be modern, mid-century, antique, or whatever the case may be, shellac has got to be your go-to. Okay, I have a bottle of shellac in my shop that's permanently there, sort of a half-liter bottle that's permanently mixed up with shellac, and whenever I need it, I can hit it straight away. So we'll go through that, and I'll discuss some of the things with shellac with you as well. Okay, very versatile product. I mean, it's been around forever. Food safe, 100% food safe. Okay, so please do when we get involved in that section, ask your questions, and then let's help you. But that's something you definitely want. So please do come and see Dylan on the 28th. It'll be worth it. Okay. Right. So again, if you know me, you'll know that I'm a bit of a safety nut. I urge you to please follow the safety protocols. Okay. Eyes, I think that's a given. Those of us that wear glasses, that's not our protection, guys. We need to get over the glass protection and put that on. I have mine and I wear them and I make use of them. And even then, I was cutting some material a couple of weeks back, and the glasses and the over the glass protectors had slipped slightly, and the chip hit my forehead, and it actually fell down and landed on my eyelash. And I'm busy pushing stuff through the thicknesser. And what do? You're halfway through the thicknesser and this thing's on the top. So what do? You just kind of, wing it until you get the board out on the other side. And then, of course, don't touch your eye, because you don't know which way the splinter is pointing. It might be pointing towards your eye. So, off you go to the bathroom and see if you can try and get it off, or fluff it off, or blow it off, or whatever the case may be. Okay, but please be careful. Even with eye protection, these things can happen. Okay. Right, ears. Okay, definitely. So whilst furniture repair doesn't involve too much noise, I must say it's one of the more quieter little pleasant projects that you can do and work with in the woodworking realm. There are days where you're going to use maybe a router or something or other that's going to have a little bit of noise. Please, put your hearing protection on. Right, then the next one, nose, lungs. Okay, so it's something that's becoming quite serious in the industry and in the woodworking fraternity. We can't emphasize this enough. Nose and lungs, it's like we always say, it's not the big stuff that's going to kill you. It's the small, fine dust that's going to get hold of you. Okay. They've now found out there's a new form of cancer, probably about 3 years ago, and it's nasal cancer. Okay, where the guys who particularly the woodworkers are highly prone to that. So I urge you, these little masks that we had to wear for COVID and whatever, while they may not be the best quality masks, I mean, they're not FP2 quality and so on. That'll take microns and microparticles. But you know what? It's better than nothing. They cost you $30 for 50 of these things. At that price, I think it's worth saving your nose and whatever the case may be. Okay, so make use of it. Right, feet. Okay, if you're not a person that's working constantly in the shop, then you still need to have some form of protection. I mean, I wear not steel cap, but rather Kevlar capped shoes, because condensation doesn't happen that much inside there. So obviously winter time, if you've got steel caps and there's condensation, your feet freeze and it becomes uncomfortable. So the Kevlar ones are more comfortable. And I think some of you guys may know my daughter Casey. She was always asking me, why are you wearing those, Dad? And why do we have to wear it in the shop? I said, because something might happen. She said, but what would? It's not going to. Wow. We had an occasion where something dropped solid onto my foot, and thank goodness I had the Kevlar caps on. And that definitely saved my foot, I can tell you that. All right, so things do happen. Accidents happen. I think that's why they call it an accident. Eh? All right, hands, gloves. Okay, so gloves are not my game. Okay, I just do not believe in them. The only time I'll wear gloves, I've got a set in my van. If I go and collect lumber from the yard and the guy who's helping me carry doesn't know how to help me carry properly, and he breaks and I'm going to follow on and the splinters are all going to run up my hand, so then I'll put gloves on. That's the only time. But otherwise, no. Most accidents that we have with any blade type machine have been due to the result of guys having gloves, because whatever's inside, when that glove gets caught up, whatever's inside that glove goes with it. Okay, so I'm not a fan of gloves at all. And one of my good mates, he's the festival rep from Vermont, if you may know him, Costa. Costa always used to wear his gloves, and now he's religiously not wearing his gloves, okay, because he had a little incident on a router, funny enough, okay, where the router gobbled up his glove and his finger. So, all right, and then the last one is aprons. Your choice, okay. If you're a pretty clean, tidy worker, then there's probably no need for you to wear an apron. Some of us like to kind of thing. Then I think aprons will be the way to go. Look, go for a simple apron. You can get these cloth ones from the different stores. Grab that, they're a couple of bucks. Or you get yourself a nice fancy leather one, and it'll work for you. They do afford a little bit of protection if you're doing routing and working at the table saw, and you get a piece shoot back at you. That leather sometimes can. It has helped me in some cases, but not all the time. It's all pot luck whether you're going to get hit or not. Eh? So that's just the safety aspect. And whilst I say it's not overly emphasized in terms of what we're doing, you still need to be aware of it. Okay, take it in consideration. Okay, just work carefully. All right, so the first section that I wanted to discuss with you is, we kind of always want to dive in and just start talking about what we should do and how we should do and fix this up and fix that up and this crack and that crack. But for everybody, doing a repair job is a unique experience, and it's only over time that certain repair jobs become familiar to you. So the more common ones would be, if you've been doing work, is on chairs, where you get the, where people lean back on the back of a chair. So obviously the back of it gets loose and it starts racking. That's the first problem that always kicks into play. And then we look at the options in terms of repairing that. You either disassemble it or you drill through it and you put another dowel back in. By the way, you'll note I don't talk about screws and metal fasteners. I'm always talking something wood. And I'll discuss with you why we won't go and use metal fasteners. So, once you become familiar with how to do certain repairs, they also go quicker, and you also become more confident in terms of how to approach the problem. And then some of them are totally unique. You look at this thing and you say, my word, how did they even do this? So, and then you've got to try and get your head around it. And veneer jobs, so you get all these different options that will go before you. So I thought what I'd rather do is just put a twist on this. I want to talk about the tools that you should have to help you with your journey into furniture repair and restoration, okay? And see if that would help you out, okay? So we're going to just have a look at it. And just remember, this is not an exhaustive list. There were so many things I could still add in. And the list just started. So, for example, sandpaper. I omitted sandpaper completely. I didn't even broach that topic at all. I didn't even talk about varnishes. It's just, it's an overwhelming topic if you really sit down and think about it. And there's so much to discuss. So I thought, let me stick to the things that maybe are a little bit more unique and that you may not be aware of, that could actually help you and guide you as you go along. Before I move on, there's just a little meme up at the top there. So if you just want to have a look at that, I thought I'd just add that in while we're talking about tools. Okay, I thought it was quite good. It was posted on one of the groups. I can't remember which one, but I thought it was quite good. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's have a look at the first one. This is how to remove things from the wood. So removing tools, okay, or removal tools. So there's a couple of tools these are all my tools. These are the ones I have, okay. So if you start on the left-hand side, that's a nail puller. Okay, I think you guys have seen that or familiar with it. One of the things you want to do with regards to your nail puller is you want to just grind the top flat, because obviously the jaws have got a V. So when you're trying to grip a nail or something on a piece of wood that's just slightly protruding, you're always missing it. So you may want to grind it flat so that it will be flat on the round part, and then it's got a little bit of a V on the inside, and then you can use that to grip. And then the nice thing about it is you can rock it, so it's not going to actually damage the surrounding material. If the surrounding material is pretty soft, then you might want to just get little thin pieces of rubber mat and then just lay it on the sides and just rock over on top of it, and then just drop another piece of little thin rubber on it to give you that height to start lifting it. And as you rock it, it'll start lifting that nail out. Remember, when that nail rusts, the rust will actually embed into the fibers of the wood, and that's what's actually fighting you at the moment. So it makes a good lock, but that's what you're busy fighting with. Okay, so you need to just tease it. Don't put anything on top of it to try and release it. Okay. The second one is the urban one. That's the blue one. That's what we would call a fencing plier. Okay. Now, I actually saw this from one of the guys in the UK that I went and did a course with him, and he had a tool similar to that one. And I looked at it, I thought, what the heck would you use that thing for? So I asked him what it was. He says, oh, no, it's a fencing pliers. And he carried on in the true British style. It's a fencing pliers. Answered the question. I think, where are we doing fencing here? So then I said to him, okay, all right, what is it used for? You know, tell me exactly. He said, okay. So if you have a look at it again, at the top and, yeah, the top part over there, right at the top, and then a little bit further in, you can't see it all that clear. But the nice thing is, if you have dowels that are stuck, that haven't been glued in properly, but they're stuck and you're struggling to get them out, that's got a nice little grip on it. So it's got little teeth, little jaws, little serrated teeth that will lock onto that dowel, and you just give it a couple of twists, and you can actually get the dowel pulled out of there. Okay. So you're probably thinking, well, that massive investment for something like that. Look, for other things, sometimes I have to do stuff where there involves wire. Then it's got to pop a little wire cutter and stripper and little nut fastener and so on. So it's a multi-tool. But the main thing for me was to remove, it was a decent proper tool to get the dowels out. Okay, if I wanted to reuse the dowel again, I could just take them out and off you go. The next one is just a standard staple remover. So obviously when you get some furniture, the webbing has collapsed on the chair or the seat or the frame, and you need to fix that up, and you don't want to sit there with a screwdriver. I can guarantee you that you are going to, lead yourself into a bit of a problem or an accident. So that makes for a very handy little tool. So almost looks like a claw on a hammer, but it's a little bit more flush design, and it'll get in under the staple and allow you to then pry that staple out quite safely. It's got a nice curved back at the over here, so it doesn't damage the wood as you try and do the extraction. The next extraction tool or removal tool, I don't know if you've seen one like that. It's called the cat's claw. Okay. What's nice about that is for the very small nails with very small little heads, the little cat's claw, similar in design to the staple remover, it's got a little small flat flush part that's actually filed and milled down that you can slip it right underneath and just gently start prying it. And as you pry, you're moving closer and closer and closer until you can get that little nail out of there. Okay, so also a tool that's very valuable. So there's two options. You can either use the cat's claw on this end and use it as a lever or lever. Please, again, put some rubber down, or rubber matting, or a piece of wood or something so you don't damage the underlying wood. And then there's the front. So that will look like that on that side, okay? And then on this side over here, just a normal regular pry bar. You'll need it from time to time when you're trying to do the last mile to pry something open or separate two pieces of wood or whatever. That's a nice little handy tool. So that one works quite nicely, okay? There are other, removal tools or other pliers. You've got needle nose pliers, which I certainly would get. I think some of you guys may have tried needle nose pliers to try and pull nails and that out. And then you find how frustrating it is because every time you grip it, it just slips. So what you're doing effectively, that little head that you had, you're now busy turning it into another extension of the nail. Now you've got nothing to grip on anymore. And it becomes quite difficult to pull that out. And then, of course, you've got to now start digging out around the wood to try and get in there to get that out. So life becomes a little bit difficult. Then I think the other one that might be a common one to work with would be slide cutters or diagonal pliers, if you know them as that name. Slide cutters would be the ones that we cut wire and stuff like that with. Okay. So you may want to invest in that. Again, I have a set of side cutters or diagonal pliers, which I ground on the one side, so they also lie flush. So they're very similar to the nail pullers, but the nail puller is a better investment, okay? And then, of course, make sure you get things with rubber handles, especially as we get on a bit in age. That metal starts biting back at you, so you'll just want to have some rubber around it, and then makes life comfortable. Question? Yes, yes, if you don't work properly. Yeah, correct. Just blunt it a bit. Okay, so a good tip that was just given to us on the side cutters, you need to work properly with it because the edges of the side cutter that does the cutting part is actually quite sharp and you can sever the head of the nail off. So the suggestion is just, or the tip is just file those little blades on the side cutter, if you want to call it that, just file them a little bit to blunt them so that you can then grip the nail and then pull it out without cutting it off. Okay, because yeah, that's happened to me, you know. Yeah, so that's why it's not in the list of things. I'd rather use the other ones because you've got more control over it. Okay, but I think out of all the tools, the best one for nail removal would be that one and the cat's claw. The cat's claw is something that you just go and read it up, okay, and then you guys have a look at it and you can make your own decisions. But it's definitely something worth having. So if you're looking for Father's Day, birthday, and Christmas presents, there's the list. So start building it up, okay? And you've got tons of grandchildren. You should do this in about a week. All right, some removal tools. I just added in a screw extractor. Oh man, how do I even begin? Okay, so Facebook Marketplace. It's a lady offering solid oak, 2 solid oak tables, 1.8 by 600 wide, beautiful looking, 38mm thick oak tops, beautiful, beautiful. For that price, I mean, the oak's worth more than the table. So, of course, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to take it. I can repurpose this stuff. So, now listen, you guys are also going to listen to this. Don't be hasty in being, you know, eager to go and get what you think is a good score, because there are a lot of caveats that go around it. So in this case, it was on the 2nd floor, the stairs that were running like that. Okay. So you must know, it took 4 of us to lift one table. That's how heavy it was. So yeah, in my cleverness, I think, oh no, don't worry. Flip the table over. I'll just loosen all the Z clips or whatever they are, and I'll take them off, and then we'll lighten the load. So there was no apron. It was just a frame of legs, and on 2 sides, the top was resting on top of it, and that it was about 150mm wide with oak. They had used contact adhesive to attach it to the table. Okay, so that was number 1. Number 2, they attached a edge strip so they could then put it up. So if you're looking underneath the table, there was an edge strip so that you could put it against this beam that was going across the table, and then you could use that to screw into the table. So basically that had no purpose whatsoever. And as I was busy trying to take those screws out, some of them were stripped. There was like 20 of them in the row. So they were stripped. Some of them had broken off inside already. And then I was lucky to get probably about, out of that 20, I think probably about 8 of them came out. So the rest were all stuck inside there. So now my dilemma was, how do I get this thing apart to get that table top down? So it was 3 days at about 2 to 3 hours working on that with no result. I hadn't even got one leg loose. I used a multi-tool to try and get in there. And then I used the multi-tool to try and sever the heads off of the broken screws that were in there. And it was just, eventually I think it was frustration. And we couldn't even get it through the, what happened is they put security gates in on the top of the stairs and at the bottom of the stairs, and it was now narrower than what the table was that originally went up there. So I hope the lady's not watching this. We got it through that security gate and down, and we got it out and put it in the van and drove off. So, you know, pick your fights. Seriously, pick your fights. So the easy outs, what I'm trying to point out is, and what's related to it, they're called easy outs. I think that's how we would know. But there's so many variations of these tools that, you know, you're going to find these fasteners that are stuck inside, especially if you're lucky that the head of the screw is still in place. But because it's been so stripped from over torquing, you can just use the easy out. So it works in a reverse. So when you turn it reverse, it actually screws in, and then it actually allows you to pull the screw out. Okay, so the car mechanics and stuff like that, I think it was originally intended for them, not more for a woodworking tool. But we've grabbed it because it's a tool that can assist us. Okay, but more to take if your screw head is intact. If your screw head is broken off, well, now you're in for a different fight. Okay, so the only real practical way that I work to get that one out is if you've got plug hole cutters And it's always good to kind of spoil yourself. Maybe once a month buy yourself a plug hole cutter of different diameters, which is a bit of a useless purchase, I must be honest. You only need sort of 2 or 3 plug hole cutters, because if you get yourself a sort of an 8mm, a 12mm, and a 16, that's all you need, because you just want to cover the head of the screw or whatever, or fastener that you've got inside there. Why are you using fasteners in the first place, metal fasteners, and then why do you want to go bigger than that? Okay, doesn't make any sense. So I bought the whole range, and then what I did was I kind of went with the small one over where the screw was, and then with a bigger one and a bigger one and a bigger one and a bigger one, and I would chisel, so I could chisel it away and then get the pliers in there and then try and twist it to turn it out. So a little bit of work to get that out. Okay, so you got to think out of the box. Different tools, different things for different situations. Okay, so mine was on a table leg, so there was nothing I had to worry about. Nobody was going to see what was going on. I just had to get that screw out. Okay. All right. Have you seen an easy out before? Have you heard of them? No. So it's a reverse thread. So basically, what you would do is you take a drill, you drill into the screw, the center of the screw, just make a little hole. You can see they've got different diameters, and then it's got a little square head on it. You could probably just use your gas pliers. So you can clamp it, and then what you'll do is when you turn it left or anti-clockwise, it actually digs into the screw, and then at the same time, as it starts tightening it, it undoes the screw for you at the same time. But go gently. These new screws are useless. They're one-time use only. I think you guys have worked that out. Once you put them in, great. Try and take them out. The head will probably snap off or something goes wrong with it, okay? You don't have a high success rate. So please just be aware of that, okay? So that's a handy little tool. That's why I said to you, get the one you need, not the one you want. There's some really fancy, easy out kits out there. Yep. Oh, yes, yeah. Look, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, get the ones you need, not the ones you want. You know, you might see the fancy stuff and they're all the, you know, the cheapies. But yes, you're right. You know, try. But man, I tell you what, I think mine is still a Starrett set. I've got the threaded one, and then also it's got that little, the groove of the one with the blades on it. So you've got the 2 different types, because you can get really small. Oh, yeah, you're finished. Yeah, you're finished. Yeah, which makes me think, Dremel, there's another tool that you need. I didn't even put that in this list. There's a tool that's going to save your life over and over again. But the parts are the little bits are expensive, so be frugal, be careful, be warned, okay? But a Dremel certainly, I think there was a Dremel, just a Dremel on the shaft, a small shaft with a nice extension on it, the little small one. I think it was going for about 800 or 900 rand, I think, somewhere. Yeah, that's quite cheap, okay? So it doesn't have a lot of power, which is great because it'll stop working if you over torque it. So that means you're not going to hurt something badly. Don't go and get the big 4,000, because that's just going to chew through everything that you go that's in its way. Okay, so be careful of what you do. All right, so the next one is carbide scrapers. Okay, so some of you guys may recognize these ones. The guys in the motor industry will use them for, yeah. So these are the Barco carbide scrapers. They're generally used for gasket removal, okay, on motor blocks or engine blocks and whatever. And of course, you know how the carpenters go. If it works for us, we grab it and we use it. So really nice to work with. I like them. This one in particular, because it's got a little handle on the top of it. So when you want to scrape the varnish off, you can then drop it on the table, put a little bit of pressure on it, and you can run across. And if you get it right, you can peel that varnish away. So none of this nonsense of now trying to sand that varnish off. So you peel it away. It's like using a plane but in reverse, if you want to try and think of it, okay? So that works quite nicely for you. So that'll just chip the varnish off. Then you get... Okay, so I got mine off Amazon.co.za. They have, so there's 2 blades. I think it's a 55mm width, and then there's a 62. So I got the 62s, okay? But they carbide, and they last a long time. They're double-edged, okay? So once the one side goes blunt, you can flip it around. Then once it's blunt, you've got to throw it. Unless you can find somebody who can sharpen that little carbide bit up for you, okay? Don't put a file on it. It's not going to work. It's like filing glass, okay? Hello. No, I think you would need something more like a scraper that can get in underneath there. So let me just step back. So the question that was asked is, a chap who had a situation where there were some vinyl tiles that were on a tabletop, and would these scrapers do the job? I think it would be more cumbersome. You need a scraper with a thin blade to get underneath there. Let me rather put it to you this way. The multi-tool, do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, those of you that ever broke their arms and had a plaster of Paris cast that was put on them as youngsters, because that's when we break arms. We don't do it much later in life. Do you remember going back to the doctor and he had that saw that he put on you and you freaked out until he touched your skin and then nothing happened? Now that little tool was invented in the 1960s. That is exactly where the multi-tool came from that. So the multi-tool is a vibrating tool. So to answer your question, I had a scenario like that, but except the vinyl tiles like this were on the floor. And I was looking at this lot thinking now they've got to get in there to try and chip that out. And I just got the multi-tool from Bosch and I had the scraper blade on it. And I gave it to the guy. I quickly did one of it and just lifted the tile up and I gave it to the guy. And it was probably about a 5 square meter, no, less than that, about 2.5 square meter area. And then somebody called me for something. I went out and when I came back, all those tiles were lifted. So that's the tool to use. And in fact, out of my dilemma that I had this week with that tool, I was using the serrated tooth blade, I was using the circular one, I was trying all of them, and they just kept on getting jammed up with that contact adhesive. The one that worked the most successful was, in fact, the scraper tool, because all it did was it just heated it up and loosened off the contact adhesive and separated the two parts. So that one worked the most effectively. But I'm not going to say go and buy a 2,000 Rand tool for a solution. That's a multi-purpose solution for you. If you want to make a square hole without a jigsaw, you can use that multi-tool to do that. You know, it gets in. You want to make a mortise, for example. You can cut that mortise out with a multi-tool and then just get a drill and drill the balance of it out, for example. So I've done things like that on big builds and big tables. So the multi-tool starts becoming a really practical tool when you start working with it. But again, you've got to watch your budget and what you can do and how much you can spend on this. Eh? Yeah. Lifts it up, yeah. It's like paint remover type stuff, yeah. 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 Oh gosh, there's so much stuff out there at the moment. You know, it's impossible to cover everything, eh? Yeah. Okay. Do you remember the name of the product? Oh, okay. All right, yeah, because they do make this stuff, eh? Just as a matter of interest, one of the most, well, they call it a miracle invention, is actually contact adhesive. If anybody's actually gone and read up about this stuff, how amazing that stuff is to work with. And I do. I mean, I'll be honest. If I have a job that I've really got to push through and I've got short time on my hands, you know, where it's possible, and I know there's no disassembly going to take place on a certain build, then I've used contact adhesive and it's done the job properly. You know, you leave it open for 20 minutes, 30. In fact, you can leave it open for up to 4 hours and then put them together and they'll still bond properly, no problem. Just as strong as it was after 20 minutes. So, yeah, got a 5-liter tin and I also use this stuff and it works. There's days where you need it, but I won't use it all the time, okay? On the, I just want to go through the other scrapers with you. This particular one is a shorter one. It's a diamond-shaped blade, and the nice thing about that is you can get into the corners to scrape out whatever's in a corner, okay? So it's not a square that's going to go into a corner, triangular, so you can scrape out on that corner and then just rotate it and get that corner and scrape stuff out. So maybe glue that you've got in a bit of a corner or the varnish that's stuck in. So just give it a light lick in the corner. You hardly see the marks going across the grain. The downside on this tool is that little screw. When you try and get it into the corner, so you got your corner, you're trying to get in there, the screw stops you from about 2 or 3 millimeters of getting your reach right into that corner. So you still got the same problem. You can't get that last bit of varnish out of there, okay? Or glue or whatever's causing a headache. So that was the downside. But also another one is they sell different shapes. So you get the teardrop shape, so the one that's got the point, the sharp point at the top, and then the semicircle at the bottom, and ovals. And you get so you get different shapes of the carbide tips, and those things last. The last one is more a wrecking tool than anything else. So if you're trying to take something apart and it's beyond repair, and you've got to take it out and put a replacement piece back again, and you're not too bothered about what you're working with, and that's a nice wrecking tool. You use it with your hand to pull things apart. It's strong enough for you to pry open and to chop. So it's a combination of chisel, scraper, cutter, pry bar, whatever you want to call it, but it's hand managed. So you cannot put more damage or can't make more damage than what you can physically do to it, okay? So that kind of just ring fence the effort that you're putting in there. So those are the three, but they're expensive, okay? So I'll give you order. I use this quite a lot. This one, I'm a bit disappointed because I just can't get into the places that I need to get into. So tendency is to kind of ignore that one. But definitely the first one. And then the third one has its moment, okay? All right, rather than using a chisel and then trying to chip things out with a chisel, that's the one that came into good handy, okay? Yeah, I'm not sure at all, but you can get them here, okay? But they're pricey. So the scraper one was about 800, 900 rand. Eh? Okay, so then funny enough, this one I picked up also on Amazon, and this particular one took my fancy for many reasons. So number one, it was stainless steel. So that means it's easy to sharpen, okay? Came with a box of different shaped tips, so you can see the different profiles on it. Convex, concave, sort of semi-flat, teardrop, flat. Perfect. Also can be sharpened. Because it's stainless steel, you can now lick it on a bit of sandpaper, or you can put a little file on it and then just sharpen it up if anything goes wrong. The nice thing that they did do is at the back of it, there's a little file that you can actually remove, and you can just use that file. It's got a bit of a round over on it, and you can use that to sharpen up. If you've got a little bit of a burr that's turned over, you can just knock that burr off quickly without having to go and run and get your file. Not that that was the deal breaker. It was more that it was stainless steel, and then of course it was reasonably priced. I think it came out at about 270 rand. So if you look at the Barco one, that Barco one was about 400 rand with the triangular bit. And then I still had to buy the other 4 tips on it as well, which went for about 200 and something rand each. So I'm looking at over 1,000 rand, where that whole kit came in at 270. Okay, so that's also off Amazon. So it was worth it. Okay, so something to invest in. All right, so definitely one of the things I use the most. That's my little kit, my little go-to. The other ones are there if I need to do something any more heavy duty. Okay. All right, so the next one, card scrapers. All right, do you know what a card scraper is? Who hasn't discovered a card scraper yet? Okay. All right, so card scrapers have been around longer than sandpaper's been around. They normally are just a sheet of toughened steel plate. And what you do is you then flatten it on its thin edge. They're normally about anything from 0.4 millimeter to about 1.2 millimeter thick. And then what happens is you flatten the edge and then you turn a burr on it. And then what you can do is you can then use it to scrape on your wood. If you've got, maybe you've joined 2 boards, laminated 2 boards together, you've used sandpaper to clean off all the glue, and there might just be a slight step between the two. Now you get a cabinet scraper, there's one that you can hold by hand. I think it's the standing number 80. The blade stands pretty straight up with a 45-degree bevel on it, then you can use that. That's a nice toy to work with. But if you're not in that league and you're not a hand-playing person or whatever, the card scrapers might be the one that works for you, because you can then use that. So what you do is you can bend the card, and where you bend it, where the apex is, you can focus on a certain spot. So if you put a piece of wood through a thicknesser and you've got snipe that's taken place or tear out after a branch knot, and you look at that and you say, oh, come on, now you want to go and sand it. So now you sand it and you create a little valley around that branch. Well, if you had a card scraper, you can actually go to the other side of the branch, and then from this side where the tear out is, move towards the branch. And if you focused on that, you can actually use the card scraper and spread it. That'll make a nice shallow little flat part that your eye won't even pick it up. And you can clean that up and level it out properly. So basically, you could actually stop using sandpaper if you know how to use a card scraper properly. I've got a cupboard that's full of sandpaper, and it's just not dropping. But I've got a bag or a shelf full of card scrapers of all different shapes and sizes. And that I use. That's my go-to. I'll grab that before I grab a piece of sandpaper, funny enough. It's just so much quicker and so much easier to work with. Okay, so, have a look at these things. They're out there and they're available. So this is the more fancy ones. Okay, so you get a convex and concave one. These have got, believe it or not, when you get your piece of furniture to work with, you'll see that all these little molding parts that they've got are standard. They've been around for the last 200-300 years. They're standard. They haven't changed. So those little radiuses that they've put on there for the convex concave will fit over that. So, if you've got a Roman ogee on the edge of a table, you'll find out that these guys will fit in there, and you just run it down. You can clean out all that varnish and gunk, and then you can clean it up and go. Instead of putting sandpaper and then straightening out that ogee, which you guys have done. So now you're thinking, that would have been something you could have done with at the time. So things like that to look at. Okay, and then again, Made out of toughened steel. They've got different radii that you can work with. Standard, okay, so you should be able to work with most of the repair jobs that you do. Can be resharpened and is reasonably priced, okay, so these are available. All right, okay, next. Gary. Right, so the next one will be the following. So just some different variations of it. So there's, you've got the gooseneck and the large radii cards. So there's a square one. This is a traditional one that you should probably be familiar with, okay? But they come in a gooseneck style. Gooseneck style is awesome. You know, when you're working with these Queen Anne type styled legs, you'll find that that gooseneck will actually, as you move it into the different, where the thin and thick parts are, that gooseneck fits in perfectly to scrape that all off. So something to look at. Then, of course, you've got the large radii down at the bottom of this one, and then on the top, so that'll work. You know, when you've got these big bowls and stuff like that, they're normally a standard radii. And then, of course, this one is an all-rounder. So you can have the convex, concave, and the two flat sides, okay? So basically, when you work with this and you sharpen them up, so I just want to show you on the square one, you will have two sides and two sides. You've got four sides that you can work with. So when I do a project, a fairly big project, I'll have a pack of probably about 6 of those cabinet scrapers or card scrapers that have been sharpened and prepped up and ready. And I'll start working with them. And, you know, if the project is a bit of a bigger one, and by the time I've hit the 6th card, so that means I've got 24 sides that I've used. By the time I've hit the last card, and the project still needs to carry on a bit, all you have to do is just take the burnisher and just turn the burr again. You don't even have to go and do the whole sharpening process. And you can do that probably up to about 5 to 10 times per card. So all you do is just take all your cards quickly, just turn the burr again back down, and then you're good to go for another 24 sides. Okay, and that's a couple of packs of paper, sandpaper that you're working with. You look at the price of sandpaper. Not putting sandpaper out of the way, okay? What I'm trying to say to you, this works. I mean, if you haven't used this, grab a pack. They're $300 for a pack. Go find out, go watch something on the YouTube and find out how to sharpen them. They're straightforward. You'll have the tools and the kit in your shop already. Take it and put it down on a tabletop that's got varnish on it, that old dark varnish, and run across it and just see how that stuff shoots and flakes off. You're going to look at this and say, oh gosh, and you use the sander. It can't compete. Just can't compete, okay? So something to look forward to, okay? And then for my mate Jerry, he always knows I talk about card scrapers. I put this in just for him, okay? All right, card scrapers. So there's also miniature and card. So I just wanted to show you. There's some little baby ones. Man, those are an absolute winner. Absolute winner. You've got these odd shapes and these little curves and whatever on a piece of old furniture or antique furniture, and you just can't get in there. Now you're trying to fashion a tool with a bit of sandpaper. You're trying to glue on the back of the end of a stick to get in there and to try and... None of that works. These little boys are the tool. You can see even the little beading groove that's on here for your beading. I mean, you can't go better than that. You put it on top of that bead and you just walk it down and it just scratches everything out of the way. Okay, no damage to the wood. All right. So these are things, and then little, obviously the convex concave options. That's great because now you can get in, you can sort of tap it into that little groove and clean the stuff out. Job's done. There's a small elliptical shape and then the little small gooseneck. Man, I tell you what, best things ever. Absolutely best things, worth their money. But you can see they're pretty small. I mean, they're only about 30 millimeters by about 50 millimeters long. They're thin. They're probably about a 0.6 millimeter thick, but they work the best. Okay. Now you're probably looking at me and saying, "Well, how do you sharpen them?" Well, you just have to give it its face. It's thin enough and small enough that you just want 2 sharp edges to meet, or 2 points to meet to make it sharp. You don't have to turn a burr on it. Okay, because you're really scraping. You're not actually taking wood off or anything. So that's it there. Okay. So the ruler for scale. Then of course you get the flat cards with the concave on the side. That's nice because now you can hold it sturdily and you can then walk it and take a walk around the OG, finish the job off. Where the other ones work nicely, you've got more control with those ones, okay? So, all right, if that works for you. All right, so, okay, then the ones that you should be familiar with, if anybody does use them, those are mine. You can see how well used they are, worn they are, and polished they are, and so on. They all look the same dark color as you have here. And now they've got this shiny looking effect. So you'll get the idea. And they're quick to sharpen. I mean, I probably did all, I took them all out and I sharpened them about 2 weeks ago, the whole lot of them. So how many is 2, 4, 6 of them? If it took me 10 minutes, it was a long time. And they were making shavings like you can do with a hand plane. Okay, well, not as big and thick as a hand plane, but nice and curly. Okay, So something, and it comes with time and a bit of practice, like all things. But once you've got the knack, you're in there, okay? And again, reasonably priced, okay? So please have a look at them, okay? It's going to save you a bundle. So for those of you that haven't seen this, does this kind of make some sense to you? Is it something that you would get your hands on? I definitely would. No, well, not all of them. Not all of them. So, oh, yes, there we go. Oh, okay. So there's the gooseneck. Yeah, there's the pack. So there's the pack with the gooseneck. You can hand that around. Are there any other ones there? Yeah, they've got some single packs, multi-packs, square. The Narix ones, the Veritas ones. Yeah, you want to just be fancy, Lee Valley, sorry. How much is Lee Valley? How much is Narix? Have a look at that. They both equally do the same job, okay. All right, they are the other ones, the ones that I showed you, the convex, concave, and so on. They are available from, if they're not here, have a look at some of the, because I know certain brands, it's Lynx Tools from the UK. They might not be held in the store here, but you'll be able to find them at other woodworking stores. Okay, I got mine locally, so all right, not on Amazon. Okay, so all right, good. So have a look at that. All right. Okay, so yeah, it's something that's just going to change your way of working. It's just one of those small, silly little tools that you pick up and you say, well, gosh, why did I mean, I knew about it, but I just, I'm a modern woodworker. I want my Rotex. I want to use sandpaper. I want to show everybody with my pigtails and everything. I'm cool. I built an oak table for a lady. And on that project, only thing I did was I put it through my thicknesser. I laminated, sanded the glue off. Okay, obviously the top side I cleaned the glue off with a cloth. Okay, after about 30 minutes, wiped that all off. But the underside had whatever those things are, stalactites or stalagmites, whatever the thing that drops. So when I flipped it over, please don't put a chisel on it, because then you pull out the wood fibers on that joint at the same time, and then you're going to sit with that mess. Don't do that. So just take 60 grit, good 60 grit sandpaper on a sanding block, and then just sand that off. And then afterwards, you can then start using the card scraper. So it really works well. So even on epoxies, you know, when you've got knots on, sometimes a client will say, oh no, I'd like to have some knots or whatever on my tabletop. And then when you put, you know, I don't really work with epoxy. I use CA glues. I'll chat about it coming up. When you put the CA glue and you make a dome, then those cabinets, so just sand it lightly with sandpaper, because you know that if you hit it with a random orbital, you're going to have a hill and a valley. So you'll have the round part, then it creates a bit of a valley, and then it's back onto the top part. Go and test it. Throw some water on it and see what's going on. Water tells you everything is going on in your table. Not a marble, water. So when you use a cabinet or card scraper and you scrape over there, oh man, it just cleans it off like no, and it's flush, flush, flush. Take a nice 120 grit or whatever you're going to finish it with, maybe 120, 180, lick it, and you're good to go. Put your finish on it and wrap it up. Okay, so make it easy on yourself, eh? All right. Okay, good. Okay. You guys impressed with those cards? And then you saw the pricing, didn't you? Somebody will tell you, yeah, it's a steal. Tell you what, I'll buy 4 of those, and I still won't wear them down as much as that. No, gosh, they are different. Don't get caught up in the hype, eh? Go watch a couple of YouTubes, see how they sharpen it. The guys will talk, there's guys that will talk about sharpening, and there's guys that will try and sell you solutions. You need a burnishing rod. If you can't get a burnishing rod, it's a round carbide rod that you use to turn the burr. If you can't get a burnishing rod, then I'll tell you what, your easiest burnishing rod that you'll get, and the cheapest one you'll ever have in your life, here's your burnishing rod. Can you see the back end of a router bit? That's your burnishing rod. So you'll just have to get smart to use that to turn the burr. Okay, you can use the back of that. Don't use a screwdriver. It's probably the worst one to work with, okay? Unless you've got a real good toughened one that's not chromed or something. But a router bit will do the job for you, okay? All right. Good. Okay, now, there was a scraper that I got from Ryder. It was probably the most amazing scraper I ever got my hands on. It's my, well, I mean, I really enjoy this toy. So what I do is I put the ruler back here for size. It's about 200 millimeters in length. That's the scraper there. It's a long, flat, almost spring steel type scraper. Man, it's not only for that. You know, if you want to try and you've got a crazy molding that you're trying to glue together, you put your clamp on, but you need to just have a bit of a reach. You can bend that in and use it in as part of your clamping, so it'll actually allow everything to form around that spring steel bend that you've made. It's so versatile, but the main thing is for scraping. Man, it's better than a card scraper or a cabinet scraper. It's just, and you can't get them. That's why I put the word scarce at the bottom. Why is it the best tool you get your hands on is the one you can't find again? Because I would have loved to have bought another 2 or 3 of those things. They're really worth it. They were a couple of bucks, man. They don't make them anymore. So that's how it goes, I guess. All right, now, you know what? We can't just talk about all the cheap tools in life. We've got to talk about the fancy stuff. All right, so there's some specialized scrapers, and that's made by Festool. Now you're looking at this and saying, what, Festool made a scraper? Yes, they did. So let me just point this out to you. This is something that I don't even know how to emphasize it. So, gosh, you've got an antique piece of furniture. It's been shellacked, button, French polish or whatever. Beautiful. But somebody's dropped their keys on it and there's some of the shellac is chipped off. What, are you going to go fix the whole thing up? If you put methylated spirits on it, are you good enough to get that back and level again? Can you just button polish on that spot? All these questions, yes or no. If you can, then you know what you need to do. But if you're in a situation where, no, these things are very technical and very complicated, probably the easiest way around this is you would take your shellac and you would just drop shellac onto it and build up that patch. Now when you've finished, you know that you've got this daunting task of trying to polish it now. Now remember, button polish or French polish is a motion. It's almost like in the old days we used to bone the front of our boots. Do you remember that motion? It's a similar type of concept. How are you going to blend that back in again? Because you've got to flatten that bump and then blend it back in again. So you're thinking about it, and this process is not sounding all that easy at all, does it? So what these little toys do for you, there's 2 of them. The M stands for motor and the H stands for wood. The first one that came out was this one, was for the motor industry, believe it or not. Let me illustrate. On the front of your car, you get little stone chips. And over time, those stone chips build up because you got your sports car and you've been chasing other sports cars and you've been riding too close to them, and the stones that have been coming up is like a sandblast and they've been chipping away the front of your bonnet, okay? So what you do is you get this fancy little tool. It's got a little cup in it with a small little spout at the bottom, and you fill it up with your paint, and then you tap it on each of those little chips. It creates a small little dome. Now you've got to get that all flat. So then you take out your sander, and then you start sanding it. And then what do? You get hills and valleys again, don't you? So it never ever comes out proper, because that's the nature of sanding. But when you take that carbide scraper, the lanyard is a certain thickness, that the front of the carbide scraper, so it's a plate. As you can see there, it's a plate. When you put that on the lanyard, it creates a 5-degree angle, and it's got a radius, and I think they'll tell you somewhere there's a radius of 2,000 and something millimeters radius. So when you put this little tungsten or this little carbide scraper on there, and you run over that piece of paint, it shaves it off. It shaves it off without scratching anything else around it. Do you understand what I'm doing to the top of this antique table now? I'm shaving off that piece of that shellac that's made that little dome. I'm shaving it off. And all I have to do now is just take a 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 sandpaper, and I've got to clean that up, and then a burnishing compound, and I can rub it up. You would never ever see where that scratch or mark was. Does it make sense to you? So then they went and made one for the woodworkers, which is this one here. Does exactly the same as what the one for the car does, except there's a couple of added things in it. They got a little radii on 1, 2, and 3, which means if you wanted to quickly turn a radius on an edge of wood, instead of taking out your little block plane to quickly cut it off at 45 or whatever, you just take that and you run it down the edge, and it just peels that little piece off, and it's perfect. Nothing more for you to do. But they're pricey. It's 1,400 Rand for a little small piece of carbide about that big. Drop it, it chips, it's done. Okay? But it's worth its weight in gold. Okay, yeah, I do. I have both. And there are days, you know what, my job will cover the costs of that many times over. Client is that emotionally involved with their furniture. They're that passionate about their piece of furniture. It's that old. It's been that long in the family. They want those key marks fixed up. I'll fix them up, and there's a price to pay for that. Makes sense? All right, so I'm not saying that's what you have to get. I'm just exposing you to tools that are available out there. Okay? All right. Anyway, so let's move away from the scrapers. Do you know what those are? Why am I showing you clamps? Well, look, in the first instance, when you're doing repair work, you've got to clamp the stuff up at some point. You're not going to just put glue in there and just leave it, okay? Because that is the worst nightmare. I've had occasions where I've got pieces of furniture where the guys have just put glue in and put the two parts together, and that was it. They didn't even put a rubber band or tie a piece of string around it to pull it together, nothing. Just left it like that. Now you've got to come along and fix that. Not the easiest thing in the world, I can guarantee you that. Okay, so the reason why I've shown you the clamps is that please get yourself clamps, speed clamps that can work in a normal fashion, but when you take the head off and put it on this side, it'll be a spreader. Why do you need a spreader? So remember when I started the conversation, I said to you that the chairs break and rack and whatever at the back. Now you want to get that chair apart. You're not going to use a hammer on it. For goodness sakes, guys, do not hammer anything in this game. Even if you lose your sense of humor, do not put a hammer on it. I can see some of you guys, you look like the hammering type. It looks like, I'm going to hammer the heck out of this thing. Please don't do that. Well, even a rubber mallet, I'll show you damage I've done with a rubber mallet. I'll show you that I've regretted it. So, you know, but, yeah, it happens. Okay, so there's a nice little hammer that you get, and I didn't even put it up there. It's obviously a T-shape with the head. It's got an amber head that's like plastic, and on the other side you can put in white rubber. You can screw the little heads off. So you can put a white rubber, you can put a black rubber, and you can also put a hide, animal hide, on that if you want to use it like that. Okay, so that's a good one to have. I've got a rubber mallet, half black, half white. Depending on when you're also in a foul mood, you hit the black part on the light wood and then or maple, and it's got this black mark on it, and you look at it and you just say, idiot, you know. All right, please don't. And you shouldn't have a steel hammer anywhere near you in this game, okay? Because now you're looking for trouble. All right, but yeah, you need that to tease them apart. Now, let's just have a quick word about that. There's different types of glues, and like I said, the subject gets so involved and so complex that, you know, how much do you tell people and how much can I impart upon you? But at some point, if you're taking this refurbishment, repair, renovation work that you're doing seriously, you will go and do research. You'll be a good student and you'll go and do some research. You'll have a look at books. You'll go to the internet. You will find the things that you need to find. You'll learn from the people you need to learn. You'll pick up your favorite characters and you'll work with them and you'll find out what they do and how they do and listen to the recommendations that they make. So along that path, there's going to be a topic and a discussion about glues. Okay? We've just spoken about contact adhesive. We now found that that is stuff you don't want to come in contact with. Okay, excuse the pun. You really don't. But the PVA glue, polyvinyl acrylate, the aliphatic, all these type of glues, those are common glues, okay? Used from a certain period of time. So if you know the history of your glues, you know that only around about the 40s, 50s, those glues came into play. But there was a glue that preceded all of that, and that was the glue that always eludes us. Hide glue. Excuse the pun. And people tell me that there was fish glue. Okay. Hide glue. Let's stick to that. Now, hide, if you have a piece of furniture that's got hide glue, you know what? You've got nothing to worry about. Bit of heat with a heat gun, and that baby just slips apart. Okay? You can do whatever repair work you need to do. Clean all that old hide glue off and then put some fresh hide glue back on it, put it back together. Why? Because you're a good repair person and you are going to make it easy for the next person who needs to do the repair work. Do you understand? Because you're good at your game. Because nothing lasts forever, not in any game. Okay? Things do fall apart. And that's what you're going to do. You're not going to go put contact adhesive in there because then you're being nasty, you're being a horrible person. And you're not going to put in no more nails or what's the other one that the guy tells me? Sticks like, yeah, from whatever the company is. Stay away from that stuff, please, guys. Okay, it's not what you want to work with, okay? Then the PVA glue, somebody was telling me you can use vinegar to dissolve it. I haven't had the time or the inclination to go and play with that. What I do rely on, though, is round about the 60s, 70s. All the modern glues that were manufactured up to that point, so let's call it towards the end of the 80s, the glue was good, but not that great. Not like it is today. So you're still very lucky. Sometimes you can get away with it if you just give it a bit of a warm-up and you put a spreader on it. So when you lock your spreader, warm it up, you'll actually see it as it warms up, the legs are going to start popping apart. The fronts never go apart. If the front goes apart before the back, then you know there was a bad design and bad manufacture on that chair. Then you've got yourself a problem, okay? How are you going to pull that apart? Well, mate, then you get the hammer, okay? You work it, all right? Okay. And remember, if you break something, you've got to fix it. And there goes your profit, okay? So watch what you're doing. Okay, so that's what you... No. I just heard that... Yeah, some guys say... I've heard and read guys are saying, oh man, there's so much... don't believe everything you see read on the internet. That's Abraham Lincoln, eh? Remember, he set that up many, many years ago. So I'm suspicious of what goes on the internet sometimes. Oh, gosh. Just a bit of heat and a spreader. Yeah. Please, when you use a heat gun, move it around so the wood and everything can... If you see it start caramelizing, you know you've gone a little bit too far, okay, obviously. But just be careful, okay? Put a heat gun on it, and then it spreads. Okay, it'll open up for you, and then you can do your work or whatever. Okay. But that's the trick. You've got to identify what period that furniture comes from to be able to work out what glue was used. So the modern furniture, obviously they use modern glues, and they've got compounds and epoxies and silanes that they put in there, and it's crazy stuff. To get that apart is near impossible. And in any case, who wants to take a piece of IKEA furniture apart to fix that up? It's impossible. Okay. Right, one other little tool that you may want to get is, and maybe you guys are familiar with it or seen it or heard of it. If you haven't, welcome to another tool. This is a little thread cutter. So instead of going and getting yourself a big set of tap and dies and whatever the case may be, it's one little thread cutter that can manage both metric and imperial threads. What you do is you just open the little jaws, lock it around the thread, and you just turn it and it'll fix up the thread for you. Cuts that thread clean, and then you can put your stuff. Because a lot of the older stuff, antiques and so on, they would use screws for the fasteners or latches or whatever the case may be, and the screws are gone over a period of time. Instead of, you don't want to replace with new stuff because then it's no longer an antique. You want to take the original one and then give that a bit of a repair and then, let it work again, okay? So that's a nice little tool to get your hands onto, okay? All right, good. Okay, then, again, another topic that you can go into for days on end. Rasp wood files, okay, so basically what I do is I use that to remove the glue from the tenons and maybe the dowels, because sometimes when you pull a leg apart, the two 10mm dowels are stuck in the back of the leg and the other side's empty, first prize. Then you take your little tool to try and see if you can pull it out. If it's sitting tight, nothing wants to give, first prize, you're happy. But then you've got glue around that dowel. Now remember, for glue to work, it needs to have a bare wood surface. It's got to attach to the lignin so that it can work and then it can tighten up and lock. Okay, that's what you need to have happening. But if there's other glue on top of it, it's basically like an insulation. It's just going to be glue on top of glue and nothing's... It's a failed joint. Don't even attempt to glue those things together. Don't even think of going a shortcut and putting epoxy in there. There's nothing to grip onto the wood. Okay, so then what you need to do is you need to get something that you can clean that glue off. And then what I would suggest is you take a damp cloth, not wet, damp cloth. After you clean the glue off a tenon or those dowels, wipe it so you can see where the glue is still on that dowel or the tenon. Does that make sense to you? So you can make sure that you've got it clean. So if you can get the two flat sides clean, because that's easy enough to do, and then on the dowel, it's a little bit difficult to clean it off and maybe a bit of sandpaper to clean it. Just wipe it with a damp cloth. See where it hasn't penetrated. Oh, there's still a bit of glue on that side. Take it off. Invariably, what's going to happen is you've made it smaller, so that means it's a loose joint. But there are solutions for that, and I'm going to show you the solutions for that, okay? But you must clean those mortars, those tenons. Well, the mortises have to be cleaned as well. So the tenons need to be cleaned properly, as well as those dowels. Don't take the dowels out. Go get your fancy flush cut trim saw and cut that off and then try and find the center, then re-drill the hole and put a whole new one in there. You know what, 10mm was the biggest they had in those days. Where you want to go to 12 now. Now this design that they've put in place, You're no longer 1/3. You've now gone pretty close to half. Now you've weakened the wood structure itself. Never mind just by putting that dowel in. You're not strengthening anything. You're weakening it off. So you need to stick to the rules that are happening out there. When you pull your furniture apart, measure things and just see how it works by the rule of thirds. It'll be 30 millimeter wide with a 10 millimeter dowel hole. 1/3. So keep an eye on how these things work. It's 1/3 away from the edge, not straight on the edge. So there's reasons for that, for the strength. So keep an eye on that. So different rasp types. So this is my favorite one, just purely because it's nice to hold. It's a Shinto rasp. I don't know if they've got them. Have they got Shintos here? The Japanese rasp. It's actually, has anybody ever seen a Shinto rasp? So it's made of, looks like hacksaw blades that are all joined together. And it's got two sides. It's got a fine and a rough side. And if you know how to work with it, it can clean things. I mean, the nice thing about it is because of the edges, they're smooth. But the rasp goes right up to the edge. So you can go right into a corner and you can clean something out if you just, work lightly and smoothly. The other one is the Stanley Sureform. I really do like them. It's these babies, yeah? You must know these ones. Some of you guys may still have the old aluminium one, which is antique already. All right, so you know the Sureform. Just send that around. They come in different lengths. That's the small one. Then there's a medium one. There's a hand plane one. The hand plane one is beautiful, okay, if you know how to work with that. Once you get the grips in terms of how that works, you don't even have to use a hand plane. That will work perfectly for you. They still make them. Blades are still available. Best thing ever. Then, oddly enough, there's another tool that is available, the microplane. Has anybody heard of the microplane or have a microplane? Anybody's wife who does, or you who does a lot of cooking? No? You know when you want a zest with a lemon and you've watched MasterChef and company? Have a look at the little tool that they've got. It's a microplane. So the company who made that, the woodworkers hijacked it from them. I think it's how it went. And so they make triangular ones, round ones, oval ones, long ones, short ones, miniature ones, whatever. They work, but the problem is, on our hardwoods, they tend to blunt very quickly, or the little blades bend. It's a piece of sheet that they laser cut and bend all the little things. It's almost like the Sureform, but they blunt very, very quickly. So I've got a collection of them. I tried because my wife did a lot of cooking, and I borrowed one of his Zester one, and it worked a treat. So I went and bought a set of the things, but I don't know if it was worth the investment. But anyway, there they are. Shinto's my favorite, and then the other ones that you buy, like the normal looking rasp, but the big gaps and teeth on it, they kind of work, but they're nasty. They just don't leave any. You can't get anything nice out of them. They're just really for quick removal of material. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe you're busy fixing up a Queen Anne leg down at the bottom, a patch or a piece. That might be the thing to go for. But learn how to use the Sureforms and things like that. You might have a better success. Okay, so try that out. It might work for you. You should have a set of carving tools. Okay. Don't worry about the make or the brand. Just get a set of those things. I think it stands to reason why. You're going to get a set of chairs that were made 120 years ago with all the little flutes on it and all the little curls and twists. And then the top of it's got the lion's head with all the little laurels and leaves around it. And it's been just varnished and varnished and varnished over the years. It's now the lion looks like an angel. And then when you start working on it, eventually the lion appears. You understand? So then that's where these tools will work for you, to get in there, clean things up, tidy it up, and get some of the varnish out and whatever muck or gunk's lying inside there. Okay, so definitely something. Don't go big on it. Get a decent little set that you can work with, a cheapie, and that's all you really need, because you're not going to use it every day. And if you do have a lot of carving work to do, and you are good at carving, and well done to you on that, then invest in a good set of carving tools. Okay, all right. All right, some other little tools to play around with. Pick hooks and rotary rasps. Again, to remove stubborn glue, epoxy, and rapid removal of material. So these little pick, it's got little shaped picks. You can see there's like almost a U shape, almost like a little dental kit, if you want to call it that. That allows you to get in there. Maybe you're in a mortise and you're trying to clean the mortise out, and you're backing to get that last little bit of sticky gunk glue that's stuck at the bottom. And those little pick tools will help you to pull that stuff out. So they're there for a reason. Use them, okay? And then the rasps, it's these ones that you put on a back into a drill bit. Again, you get cheap ones and you get nasty ones, okay? Get yourself a good set because they really do help when you're trying to just do quick removal in a small area or whatever the case may be. They will help you enormously. Then the other one, really worth having in your collection is the fastener bits, but man, these things are expensive, okay, a good set. If you need a particular size, the size I would suggest you do is, and I took it out of my box and I'm showing you the size there, the 10 millimeter one is the most used in repair, okay? All right, so you've got 10 millimeter dowels, you've got 10 millimeter mortises, that's what you're going to work with, okay? Now let me explain something to you. When your mortise has failed, and you've got the tenon on the other side, the tenon's easy to clean off. You use a file and you clean that gunk off, or the glue off, and it's nice and clean, ready to go. Now you've got to go and look at the mortise. The way to approach the mortise is to introduce yourself to it. And then take your 10 millimeter fastener bit, put it in your drill, put it in reverse, and put it into the mortise. Spin it up and down, because now it's not in cutting mode, it's in reverse mode. Spin it up and down, and the heat and the friction that gets generated will start collecting the glue that's stuck to the sides. Take it out, you'll see all the glue stuck to your fastener bit. Quickly get that stuff off there before it goes hard, because if it goes hard, you're going to struggle to get that off. Then you do it again and put it back in there. Once you've got that glue removed, then carefully, when it's in, the fastener bit is in the mortise, then put the drill in forward mode, and then slowly up and down, clean out all that nonsense, and get some sides, the walls of that mortise cleared, so you've got something to grip onto when you put the glue in there. Does that make sense to you? Okay. That's the more frustrating side. That's how you fix up the mortise, okay? It's a 10 millimeter fastener. If somebody made it with a 12, well, then you've got a 12 in your collection, okay? They won't make them all the way up to 54. I don't see that happening, okay? But the 10 is the most common size. I actually had to replace my 10. I wore it out so quickly, okay, out of the set. So please, that's, and then obviously also for the dowels, okay? You want to clean the dowels out, then you're going to hit it with a 10 mil. Look, you can get a set of brad drill bits. You can then use those to go in with a 9 millimeter and then use the 10 millimeter fastener just to clean the rest of it up. Okay, just remember, put a piece of tape to get the center and then go in, okay? Otherwise, that fastener is going to go all over the place. But generally, the fastener is hidden away. I mean, the dowels are all hidden away, so if you make any damage around the hole where the dowel is, nobody's going to see it, okay? So you'll be safe, all right? Okay, I did mention there, a good set of fastener bits requires financing, okay? All right, so believe me, they are that expensive. Right, let's have a look at adhesives. Anybody used that product? Anybody seen that product? You've seen it? Okay, so this is a go-to in my shop. It's a two-part epoxy, so there's an A and a B. It says there sets in 2 hours, which is great because that's what you want. You know, you want to get this job done and moved out of the way, and it cures in 24 hours. It cures. Sets in 2 hours. So you can clamp it, let it set properly, and then unclamp it, and you can just go and pack it away and leave it somewhere. Okay. An excellent all-rounder, particularly for loose joints. And then there's a word in there that says wood flour. What is wood flour? That's sawdust. That's sawdust, good old sawdust. Okay, so when they say flour, they're not talking about the thick pieces of sawdust. It's the sanding stuff that you've done. Collect some of that and put it into a bottle. Doesn't matter what wood it is. Definitely not an oily wood. Just make sure it's a dry wood. You know, oak or maple or kurt or something like that, or whatever you're collecting. Please not pine, okay? Because you get hit with that resin, you're going to have a problem. So that's your flour. Bulk it up with a bit of the flour. Mix it in, and then stick it in. So for the loose joints, that will work. And of course, when you go and look at glues and you research it, you'll find that they'll say to you, do not use epoxies on chairs because the joints are moving or the chair's moving around. So at some point, the joints are going to move. This is fail-safe. Mix it with a bit of sawdust, fine sawdust. That's why I said wood flour. Mix it with that, bulk it up, put it in, let the stuff squeeze out on its own, clean it up with thinners, and the job's done. You're going to have yourself a sweet-looking project, okay? All right. I made the comment, be patient. You must learn how to work with it properly. I mean, I've got to a point now I don't have to wear gloves. I have a cloth that I just dab with thinners, keep it on standby. When the stuff oozes out, I use my scraper, I scrape all the stuff off, put it on the paper. What you do is put it on a piece of newspaper. Don't throw the newspaper away. Leave it there. So you can see that it does set, because you might have got your ratios wrong. Okay, if it goes hard in 2 hours' time, you know you got the thing right. I've had problems. I've also been in a hurry. Mix the stuff, and then I realize, oh gosh, it didn't set. It's starting to set, but it hasn't set properly. Now you've got to do a judgment call. Okay, we'll keep it under clamps and pack it in a corner somewhere, and we'll leave it there. Okay, so do a judgment call. But that is my go-to in the shop. If you know how to work with the epoxies, you're going to get away with murder in it. So I use a lot of this stuff. If you buy it from Alkaline direct, you can go and get it from them. They'll give it to you at probably a much better price. You can get it in store. It'll be 2 pots. You get, I think it's 12 tubs, so it'll be 6 sets in one box, and it'll be, man, I'll tell you what, it's not even going to hurt your budget. And that little pot will last you a couple of months. I do quite a lot of repair work, and it's a couple of months before I move on to the next one. So keeping a box like that of about 12 for nearly 2 years, I think I'm down to about my second last set, and they're still good to go. Okay, all right, so worth the money. Okay, so that's one I want to impart on you. Then, of course, the other ones. Okay, so there's different glues, and I've made the comment, choose your glues. Like, pick your fight with regards to what you're working with, okay? All right, so there's waterproof glues, okay? So if you're working with something that needs to be waterproofed, then obviously you're going to use this glue over here. Zero creep, in other words, where the glue doesn't come out, especially on joints on a tabletop. If you use any other type of glue, what happens is a little glue line. It's like a plastic and a rubber. It starts oozing out over a period of time. You get these little ridges that stick out on the top tabletop. Then the Pro is the one that you want to work with, okay? Then the other one that I've used is the clear glue line, and Galmar sell that one. So when it dries with a clear line. So when you want to work with something and it's light wood and you need a clear, well, after you've done your glue up, it needs to leave a clear line instead of the white glue or the yellowish colored glue. The Galmar one I use, so the Galmar I've had, probably my shot, this bottle has probably been there, and it's a fairly big bottle. It's been in there for probably about 2 years, and the glue's still good to go. So before I start the project, I always take that, glue 2 pieces of scrap together just to check that it still works. If it's working, then I'll use it. So I use that because of the clear line that I get out of it, okay? Then hide glue. So Titebond make a hide glue. I've just vacuum sealed mine into a pack so it doesn't go off, and it's working perfectly. I think they've got it, yeah, you got the hide glue. Okay, so that's hide glue out of a bottle. It is the real McCoy. It's just that they've now developed techniques to keep it in a bottle at room temperature. Instead of having your little glue pot that you've got to switch on with water and all sorts of nonsense, and then let it heat up and take it out, and it gets all stringy, and then it starts smelling, and the proteins start, and all that nonsense. Okay, anyway, and then the last one is just the PVA glue at the bottom. Okay, so, but my go-to are these two here, and then so in order of preference, this one, then the epoxy, then that one, specialized, specialized, specialized. Okay? Does that make sense to you? Another comment I want to make to you is you can tint your glues. So if you are working with zebra wood and it's dark and you've got a white glue and you put this thing together and you've got that white line that comes and you look at yourself, oh man, what am I going to do? So you get a Koki out and you mark it with a Koki. I hope that, look, they all work to a certain degree. You can put a tint into your glue. So a little toothpick size and a little bit of a, these little plastic cups you get from a fastener or the takeaway places, and they save those things. Worth their weight in gold. Put a bit of glue in there, a little toothpick end of tint into it. Mix it up and you've got the color you want, and then off you go. Job done. Nobody will know where that joint is if you're that clever into putting it. Because sometimes what we've got to do is if there's a crack in the middle of a table, so what's happened is there's a joint, but it's cracked on that side of the joint and then on this side of the joint. How are you going to fix that up? You've got to cut both sides equally, and then try and match those grains up. Now you don't want them to see the glue line, so you tint the glue and you put it in there. So this one here has already got a feature in it where it dries dark. So when you use it on Kiat, for example, or maple, I mean walnut, then that glue line is invisible. You don't see it. But then on that tabletop, you can actually just slide the pieces until the grains match. And I'll tell you what, when they look at it, they'll never know that. I mean, I had a client that said to me, oh no, you replaced the top. I said, I didn't. You replaced the top. They got angry with me. I said, turn the table around and have a look at the signing underneath it. It's still the original signing. Turned it on and said, oh, I'm sorry. But how did you do that? I said, that's what you paid me for. Okay, so please, things that you need to understand, okay? All right, now, the cheat code of our life. Cyanoacrylate. Not as good as contact adhesive, but it's there. I use it. So all the little small cracks, sometimes there's a dent on the top, and I've got to fix that up. I will then put the CA glue in there. It dries relatively quickly. Let it settle, and then again, card scraper, clean it off, polish it up. You would never be able to see where the patch was, okay? So a lot of stuff. So even on knots and stuff like that, if there's something you need to fix up, some of the older furniture, the knots have dried out and they've shrunk. You want to get in there and just tighten that knot back in again. The CA glue runs into all those little pores and cavities and areas, and then it'll lock it up for you. Then you can start working on it properly, okay? So that happens, especially when you come to pine. Those knots, actually, they shrink over time because the resins have now all bled out. Then they shrink. Now there's knots loose. Just put the CA glue in there. So turn it on its side, run the CA glue, and let it go and lock it up, and then you can start working on it and get it fixed, okay? So nowadays you can get 4 types, okay? So you get thin, medium. The best one to use in my book, okay? Because the thin one, what happens is it runs. I think if you guys have tried the CA glues, who's tried CA glues? Yeah, you've seen it runs into the wood. Oh yeah, you guys live on it. In fact, they're the ones who introduced us introduced CA glue to the woodworking guys. But what you want to do is you want to try and avoid using the thin one, because the thin one actually gets into the fibers. It actually goes in. Now, there's different types of CA glue. The one that you get on the side of the road is going to kill your project. And the ones that you buy from the professionals is the one that's going to save your project. So that Galmar magic wood, if you can just hand that around. The magic wood will go in, you'll see it bleed into the fibers. But when you sand it, you can't see where it was. And if you put a finish over it, it doesn't leave a witness mark, okay? Whereas the other CAs, the cheaper stuffs, and even on the Bostik one, which I thought was a good quality, you get the little Bostik small tubes that you get in a little plastic container, a little box of 5. Gosh, I was horrified. I put that stuff on a blade, and I thought, no, I'll be fine. Sanded it, not knowing that it was like plastic. Couldn't even put the finish on top of it. It looked horrible, absolutely horrible. Now, how do I fix that whole thing up? That was an absolute nightmare, okay? Something I should never have done. So I got skittish, and I spoke to the guys from GenChem, and they said, no, theirs will work properly. And then that's the one I used. So that will work for you. And then this option of using sawdust with CA glue and then soda, and oh man, come on, guys. I've just introduced you to medium thick. Try those as an option. Okay, stop mixing stuff with it. Don't even put a tint with it, okay? Because the tint that goes in, that's why you only get one tint, that's black. I know they said they were working on a green and a brown. I've not heard anything more. It's a rubber component or a rubber compound that goes into the CA glue that they use. So please don't tint it. You're going to break down the CA's chemical capability, okay? But it is something I definitely work with. So let me go through it with you. So if I have a knot, if needs be, I'll use the thin so it can run in to lock it. You know what? Even on my thicknesser, when I'm pushing something through on my thicknesser and there's a knot in there, and that knot's a little bit loose, and I look at it and I say, okay, I'm going to take the knot. Remember the days you used to knock chisel the knot out and then put it through the thing, because you don't want that thing coming back at you or wherever you're standing. So, but then you would have to fix it up afterwards. Then we'd take a pot of wood filler and we'd fill it in or fix it up. And then epoxy came along and we'd put epoxy. And then so this game went on. Now you can glue the damn thing. So before I even thickness it, I check everything. If there's a knot in there and I want to keep it, I just fill it up with the thin. So it locks it in. Put it through the thicknesser and then start fixing it up after that. Then what I do is I then put either the medium or the thick. So generally the medium. That's in my book the best one to use. I put the medium in because then it just takes a couple of minutes for it to seep and level and go down. And then you put another coat. Always try and please layer it when it's dry. There's a difference between chemical bonding and mechanical bonding, okay? You want mechanical bonding to take place for the strength. So just wait for it to dry. Sometimes you're going to work with it and you'll find out it doesn't always dry as quickly. It's a super glue, but it's still wet. You know what? You've got a bigger patch perhaps, or maybe it's a little bit deeper. So there's more reaction. Remember, it dries with moisture, so it's got to have a bit of a reaction going on there, okay? So be patient. So normally before I go home, in the evening, I'll quickly just fill up all the spots. I'll go home, come back the following morning, and then I'll carry on with the next thing, okay? So let it work while you're sleeping, okay? Sorry, just excuse me a minute. All right, the black one is of particular interest because that will work nice with most woods and their knots that you have, okay? All right, sorry guys, just give me a minute. All right, I made a comment, does not always work for joining. Some of you guys have tried CA glue and you found it didn't join the wood together, is that correct? All right, so what's happened in that case, you used the thin, and the thin dried up too quickly before you could get those two parts together. So once again, go for the medium, okay? And that'll do the job for you, okay? So now you understand why I said medium is the best one to use. All right, okay, good. How are we doing there? I think at this juncture, can we take a break? Yeah, let's grab a 15-minute break. Are there any questions on your side? Nothing. Okay, Neil, just for you. Okay, my mate, we'll have a look at it for you. All right. Okay, guys, let's grab a cup of coffee around the corner, and then we'll see you back at 11:45, okay? Thanks, guys.
Can be done. Somebody to come and do it for us.
4,000 Rand, oh mate. For the rest of us, 20 Rand 30. Did you have coffee? Why not? And girls? Ah, okay. That's good. You must be so pleased, eh? I was going to say something else, but I'm going to keep quiet because then. Yes, yes. Today, at today's price. Yeah, I like it. Ah, come on, man. Leave your cynicism at home, man. Gary, don't ever listen to other people. You make your own choice, eh? But you're on the right track. Oh, layered. Okay, so plywood. Okay, so plywood is. This is just a bigger version of it. Like that, but a thinner version.
Yeah, but if you look at this, it's almost like that blade, like wood chips.
Oh, OSB. OSB. Okay, that we don't have. Yeah, that's orientated strand board. Gosh, that's not. No, OSB's a new invention. That's not old at all. Gosh, I would put that. I'm gonna guess. I would put that at about mid '60s, sort of '70s, maybe even later. Guys are good in terms of how they made stuff. Eh? Colors and styles can make something look old. Eh?
I know that most of it is like some solid wood. It's got a strange finish to it.
Mm.
So I know when the mate keeps spraying it with this, then I've got to take tea and then take that oily shit off.
Oh, man, the only time I use Mr. Min is on melamine. No, it's good for melamine. When you go to your client, spray it up with Mr. Min and wipe it down. It looks brand new. You leave, fingerprints are their problem. You go, you know. Yeah, serious. No, so take my number and then send me some pictures. Let's have a look at it for you. All right, we can have a chat. Are we back online? All right, welcome back, everybody. Hope you all had a good cup of coffee, just to keep you awake for the last mile. Okay, all right. So some of the things you need to use and some of the things I would suggest that you have on your tool arsenal and so on. I think having covered some of the tools earlier on, the card scrapers and the likes, I hope that kind of opened your mind up a little bit in terms of what you need to get and what you need to get to familiarize yourself or work with. Okay, it's going to save you a bundle. One more thing with a card scraper, you can take, if you have a particular profile that may be, so for example, a cornice or a data rail or whatever it is, sometimes, you know, in your router kit, if you have got a router and you guys were clever enough to buy a box of router bits, of which you've only used 4 of them out of the 12. Like I said, buy the bit you need, not the one you want. Okay. What they do is, and it's actually quite interesting, those different profiles on a router, so the OG, the Roman OG, Cove, and all the different ones that you have, the guys would make those fancy cornices and so on with a combination of those router bits. That's what I'm saying to you. Those profiles are standard. If anybody did go and shape a particular one that's really out of the norm, and there are people that would have done something like that because they were never proper qualified carpenters or cabinet makers or whatever, they would do it on the fly, and you know, we would have these people 200 years ago doing the same thing. Then what you can do is you can buy the card scrapers, the blank, that Narik's one I think it was, for 39 Rand. That'll do the trick. Go to a guy who's got a water jet, and they can give them the profile, and they'll cut the profile out for you, and then you can use that to clean your slot. So I've had the odd project here and there where I've had to ask the guy around the corner, please, can you just give it to Jeff, and he I'll give him the profile on a piece of paper. He takes it, he puts it, cuts that corner out, or he may cut 4 corners for me. And then I'll use that, and then I can go and clean out the profile or whatever the case may be. Okay, so the technology is very much on our side to help us out with what we're doing these days. Okay, so it's just a case of accessing that technology. That's why the introduction of the card scrapers to you was something I think it will change your game, okay, up your game a bit. So give it a bash, and then give us feedback and let us know how it worked out for you. It's got to work out in a positive way, okay? All right, good. So some of the other things to play around with, paint stripper. Yeah, we definitely need to make use of that. If you're like me, I just received a kitchen chair from a lady, a client, a very good client of mine, with about 30 layers of paint on it. So somewhere at the bottom is lead, I'm almost certain. Interesting enough, you can't walk into a paint shop here and get a lead testing kit. Where anywhere else in the world you can get a small little lead testing kit. And neither do we have paint strippers that you pack the stuff on, put it in a plastic bag, leave it for 24 hours, come back, and it'll take all 30 layers off for you in one shot. Softens the whole thing. We just don't have that. We've got the good old Elara. So if you guys know how Elara works, paint it on, let it stand for a couple. Don't let it go dry. Let it stand for a couple of minutes and then start scraping it off. If you've got layers and layers to take out, well, that's what you do, okay? Doesn't hurt the cellulose layers, or the cellulose or the lignin in the wood, so pretty safe. Just remember to wash it off. Don't be shy to wash your wood, okay? All right, don't be shy to do that. A little bit of sunlight liquid or dishwashing liquid, and then wash off the paint stripper. A little bit of wood's not going to hurt anything. Look, if you soak a piece of wood in water, yes, then something's going to happen on it. Might not happen all the time, but chances are pretty good. But for the most part, just give it a good wipe. I've taken out a power hose and put it on a table to clean it. People think it's crazy, but yes, it's doable. Okay, don't be shy. You know what you're doing, hopefully. Try it out. If it works, that's your go-to to clean your equipment or clean your wood or whatever. Yeah, there's another one you can use. Be careful, though, with any soda type. Yeah. Okay. Just be careful with anything that's got soda in it, Na. Okay? Chemical element, Na. If it touches oak, you're going to have a black patch or green patches come up. Okay, so be careful. But yeah, you're right. So there's a couple of things, but I'm going to show you a better solution. And please don't put sugar soap on wood. That will also start staining the wood. Okay, there's something in the sugar soap. I haven't quite identified it yet. I just know that it does because I didn't have another product. I'll talk about it. And I quickly went to the sugar soap and I was a little bit caught out on that one. Okay, so please don't be in too much of a hurry. Okay, guys, very simple. Read the tin and follow the instructions to the letter. Follow the safety instructions. Okay, please, protective eyes gear. Okay, everything else, if you burn on your hand, okay, it's going to happen. But at least you'll recover from that, well, I hope. But please just be safe with the stuff. It works. Put it in a plastic bag as well so that it doesn't dry out if you're going to leave it a little bit longer. Okay. This is not like watching paint dry. It's like watching the paint stripper dry. Okay. So don't let it get to that point. Okay. But good stuff to use. There's other ones. The citrus ones take forever. I've tried the citrus ones. They take forever to get the paint off. Okay. It's just really not. You could actually do it quicker with 60 grit paper. Okay. So that's what you want to hit. Okay. Right, then rust remover. Okay, so I was going to go the fancy route. I was going to do, the electrolysis or whatever it was. We use a battery and whatever, the electrode and all that kind of thing to get the rust off. And I was on one of the groups and the guys were saying, no, use a vapor rust. But I saw a vapor rust, but I only knew the stuff coming in from, where it works. They've got it in the United States. So I thought, where do they get a vapor rust locally? And I was looking and I thought, well, okay, let me ship it out, Yank. And then I did a quick search, and then funny enough, one of the machine stores, Ardendorf, they had it at probably the cheapest price. So for a liter, I think it was 95 Rand for a liter. The stuff is reusable. Yeah, but at 159. Hey, my mate. Another $50, I can buy 2 liters. Okay, you're going to have a good set. You remember the first slide I showed you about death, eh? If you want to go with him now or go home. Do you remember that one? Good man. So this stuff, okay, can be reused. So if you kind of, look, I don't know about you, but I've got you know, these flour sifters and stuff like that and strainers or whatever. I've got those. My wife didn't use the thing. I appropriated it, put it in the shop. So then I pour my varnish through it. So all the big chunky stuff stays behind and I've got the clean stuff on the other side, you know, so makes life a bit easier for you when you want to put varnish on. But now I'm clever. I've got paint strainers. I bought those boxes of paint stuff, so I throw it through there and it goes. But yeah, you know, use these things. So take something and then just filter the gunk through it, the residue that came off from the rust process or derusting, and then you throw it back into the bottle. Look, a little bit is going to evaporate, okay? But man, that stuff, I mean, I bought 2 liters, so the other one is still closed. I mean, I've used it for, but here's the result. So there's the before and after. I think you're going to work out what's before and after. I don't have to tag it and name it. Okay, do you believe that? I mean, I took the stuff, poured it into a bucket, put the 2 springs in there. That's for a rocking chair. Put the springs in there. Following morning, took them out, took a steel brush, brushed the stuff off, washed it under the tap, dried it as quickly as possible because it started rusting again. Just blew it down quickly and dried it out. And then just sprayed it with WD-40 that they were giving away as a free sample, yeah? And then, hey, Bob's your uncle. Client was, first thing they looked at is, oh, do you put new springs? I said, yeah, we really struggled to find them, bro. Job done. Okay, upsell, eh? Right, steel wool. Do you know about steel wool? No, you guys don't do that. Steel wool is one of the big things that you will use in your restoration game, okay? So first of all, I gave 2 types. So you've got the double nought steel wool. Then you get the one. I can't remember the other ones because I don't go higher than I normally. That's just the ultra fine. But for many things, you know, if you put a varnish down and the client wants a bit of a satin look on it, then a bit of paste wax and the fine, the ultra fine, and you go through the top of it and then rub it and wipe it off afterwards, you've got a satin look on that piece of furniture, okay? The nice thing about the bigger, please, stainless steel, you don't want to use the cheapy checkers stuff. Hit the oak. If it drops on your oak, you're going to die because it's going to turn black spots all over. It looks like it's got measles, okay? And then there is a way to get that out, but then you've got to neutralize it, and when you neutralize it, it turns green. So your problems, you just make your problems worse. Get stainless steel, please, okay? And especially the bigger ones, the bigger scouring pads. What's nice is to take the paint off after you put paint stripper on, when you've got gloves on. That just, as you run it up the legs with that scouring or that steel wool, it just peels away that paint and the paint stripper, okay? You can actually take that, because it's stainless steel, rinse it in a bucket, and then put your stripper back on again, and when you're ready to go, use that same steel wool and then clean it up again. You understand? So steel wool gets used quite a bit. And then also, if you've got complex moldings, very small, fine, delicate moldings, and it's difficult to get in to clean them, then the steel wool does the job as well for you. So you can get in, it'll act like a sandpaper. Just go gently and it'll clean it up for you without messing up the moldings. I did a complete, the demi-lunes, those one with the ball and claw? That's a semicircle table with a ball and claw. It's called a demi-lune. I did a complete demi-lune with steel wool, but the rough one, and it came out perfectly. I was very impressed with it, okay? So you try different things and see if they work for you, okay? So it really did. Okay, so steel wool, definitely something you're going to have. Then, no presentation is done until you've mentioned shellac. Guys, what can I say? To fix minor surface scratches on finishes or as a primer for other finishes, put it, so in other words, if you had to repair something or replace a piece of wood in a piece of furniture, remember the knots are always going to bleed with resin, so you want to block that off. So paint it with shellac. The shellac will then block that knot off so the resin doesn't ooze out of there, okay? Then you can put whatever you want, water-based, oil-based, can go over the top of it, okay? You can use that as a first coat. It's quick. Within 30 minutes, it's dried, cured, done, okay? Because remember, you mix it with the shellac flakes. I've just ground mine down into finer flakes, and then you mix it with methylated spirits or denatured alcohol, okay? So methylated spirits in our case. Please, that purple color doesn't have a major effect on it, okay? It's just a color, and it's not going to change the color drastically. You're not going to see it. So I keep a small jar, so a jar similar to that, that's always topped up with shellac, constantly topped up with this little brush. Don't keep on cleaning the brush. It's a waste of time, because the minute you put the brush back in the shellac, it dissolves the shellac that dried out on the brush, so it's ready to go again, okay? And remember, when you paint something over with shellac a multiple number of times, it dissolves the layer underneath, just etches it or dissolves it, puts another layer on top. and then another layer on top, and another layer on top. So that's what the button polish would be actually doing, okay, when you use it with a button. All right, so keep that in the shop. You won't regret it. You know, small little patches that you might have where there's scratches or dents or something, or a little chip out on the varnish, just drop it in there. So just take some shellac. It dries pretty quickly, it evaporates pretty quickly, and just leaves the residue behind. But all you do is you just, once it's dried properly, just take the little flakes and throw it back into your bottle again. So it's actually quite environmentally friendly, and you can work properly with it. Food's safe, it's not poisonous. I mean, if you can think back to the days of Smarties and sweets like that, they would be shellac coated to give it that shiny appearance. In the old days, all our pastries that we used to get when you walked into those pastry shops with those glazed fruit pastries, guys would paint it with shellac. That would give it that glazed sort of effect. Okay, so here's the shellac. A bag like that, I think it's a half kilo, will absolutely last you a lifetime. So it comes in flakes. I think this is the blonde. Yeah, that's the blonde. So that's, mine's the blonde Zolab, which means no wax. This is the other one. I think this is, oh, okay, orange. So there's two different colors. And then the other form that you may get it in is little buttons, okay? There's the shellac buttons, okay? So these ones you basically need to crush them. Otherwise, if you leave it in the alcohol, the denatured alcohol, it'll take much longer to dissolve. So you might, 24 hours, 48 hours later. Whereas this will be pretty quick. But if you can crush this further down to make it as fine as what I've done, then 2 or 3 hours and it's dissolved and ready to go. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, look, I don't know how bad it is underneath. I'm just trying to, so from the ultraviolet, it's now, or the UV has actually bleached it. So my guess is you would need to clean it off and then put a new coat on. Okay. All the way. But it's if you want to put shellac back on it. Otherwise, I would use a new polyurethane varnish and put that back on. Unless you want to keep its, its look with the shellac. Shellac is not that user friendly as a finish. If you put a wine glass down and there's, taking a drink and a little bit of it spilled, if it hits the shellac, there's alcohol in it. It's going to actually melt a ring into that shellac. So it's not a favorite thing for finishing anymore. Not even the piano guys use it anymore. They now spray it because we've got excellent spraying techniques so we can get mirror finishes. So the guys will spray it with a 2K Duco or whatever the case may be. So shellac still has its place as a first layer, like a primer or a base coat or whatever the case may be for everything else to go on top of it. Yeah, there are times where you need to do it. Yeah. Yes, you can, because you can put anything over the top of it, okay? Only thing you can't put over it, obviously, would be oil finishes, okay? So your Rubios, your Osmos, etc., that won't go on top of it. It won't have anything to adhere to. But for most part, yeah, you can put your first coat down, put a polyurethane over the top of it or a water base over the top of it, and there's no problem. Okay. Right. I mean, in the early years, shellac was originally put into paint. That's why you remember the story, you always had to wait for the paint to dry and cure, waiting for that the solvents to flash off, and then it could cure properly. So most of it had shellac in it. So, yeah, we have moved on, eh? All right, definitely you need a set of those repair markers. Man, I tell you what, if you're doing repairs and restorations, you'll be good at using this. There's no doubt. Client brings a chair in that morning, they say, sorry, it's really got to get out this afternoon. I've got a big dinner this evening. If you take those pens and fix all the scratches up, so it stains all those scratched parts, because it's like the chap that just brought that drawer in. It's cherry wood with a dark red stain that was sprayed over the top of it, a lacquer on top of it. But underneath it's a light colored wood. So when they chip, there might be a light colored wood underneath it. And you just touch up those light colored parts and then take the shellac and just paint the shellac up and down it. And then, of course, take the finer grit sandpapers that you've got. Sand that down, which you don't have to do a lot of, and then just use a burnishing compound and burnish it. And you've got everything done. You can go out that afternoon. Okay, so quick way of doing things. But definitely you want to get your hands on that, okay? All right. The new stores that are, I can't even remember the name of the stores. There's a whole bunch of new stores that have popped up all over the place, those Chinese stores. Yeah, believe it or not, they're the ones who keep that stuff. So give it a try. All right, so that's enough about the tools. Let's go and have a look at the repairing and how we're going to go about repairing and so on. Any questions up to this point? Anybody? Okay, so that was just an introduction to some of the tools. And like I said, I haven't even touched on the finishings or finishes or varnishes or whatever. I didn't even touch on the sandpapers. Didn't even touch on any of the other tools that are out there. You know, so those are the basic ones, I think. So I hope that was sort of informative in terms of guiding you in terms of what new tools you can make use of. Okay, all right. Look, you can use a cold glue on it. You just don't want it to weep through the veneer when you press it down. But cold glues are generally good. And then, of course, I hate to say this, but Type On have made a veneer glue. Specifically, it's got the viscosity is just right to work with on a veneer. Okay, so you could use something like that. All right. But I just normally use a cold glue and then squeeze it through. Or alternatively, use the professional because it goes dark. If I've got a dark veneer, then if it does seem to pop through on the pores, then it's not going to cause any harm. I'm not going to see those white pieces come up. Okay, but just remember to do it properly with the paper, the proper veneer paper. When you join the pieces together or laminate the pieces together for the veneer, and then place it down. Okay, the cold glue is normally the one that we would work with. Okay. Unfortunately enough, I've got a mate around the corner who's got a proper veneer press in his shop. So if I need any components done, then I'll just go across to him, put my veneers down, and he does the components for me, and then I come back and trim everything off. Okay. All right. So lucky in that respect. Okay. All right. Any other questions, guys, before I move on? Anybody? Yes. Okay, so the question is, will I hold a workshop on finishing once you've finished all your repair work? I do have a workshop on that, and finishing is also, you know, a dark science all on its own. I'll have a chat with the guys here and then see if we can present that one for you guys as well. Okay, all right, because that is just a different area altogether. Identifying what and how to identify and so on. I mean, that's also something that you need to know is how to identify the different finishes. You know, are you working with shellac? Are you working with polyurethanes? Are you working with water-based, and how do you test for them? And oil-based, you know, which are the different ones out there. Okay. All right. Anyone else before I go? All right. Anything else? Nothing. That's it. Good. All right. So let's have a look at the damage. Okay. Let's just start this. So the item has just arrived in your little workshop, and you want to assess the damage. Okay. So I've broken it up into two categories. The repairable ones are typically the scratches and the scuffs, any wood scrapes and nicks that the item might have picked up, chips and dents, cracks and gaps, stain and surface marks, holes and knots. Okay, so those are kind of things that we can fix. They're repairable. Okay, and yes, non-repairable, pet urine and other pet accidents. Okay, so a client comes to me and they've got a beautiful oak expanding table. Those leaf tables can expand up to about 2.4 meters. It's got 8 of these boards that they drop in and then close it all the way down to a 4-seater. So the client comes in, it's one of those tables, it's got 4 legs and then one in the middle, and they're on those little tapered brass wheels, you know, the little cup they put at the bottom of the legs. So these sausage dogs felt that was the appropriate place to pee. So once they started peeing on that, the pee kept on staying in that cup, and of course they would keep going back. That's what brought them back again. So this arrives in my shop, and it's oak, it's beautiful oak. Okay? It arrives in my shop, and I look at this, and the guy says, "Can you fix it?" So I said to him, "Yes." So we did. We got quite clever to the extent that when I gave it back to the guy, he was very doubtful that we were able to fix the job up for him. But a bit of clever thinking, we got the thing sorted out properly. We matched the top of the leg down to the bottom, and I had the pieces turned, and I had them reattached. And it's the only time, the rare time, that I actually used a metal fastener. I got 10mm rod, threaded rod, and I used that instead of a dowel. And I hope this makes sense to you, because the block was about 150 high, and that in its own, if you put a 10mm dowel in there, that is just not the amount of force, the forces that are going on at the bottom of the leg. If you move it, it's just going to snap it off. And that's the only time. So we cut out, I think it was about 250mm length just drilled the holes up in the bottom and then put it in with, and again, with epoxy and locked it in. So that's one of the rare occasions. And the threads were there to hold that rod. So that's one of those rare occasions where you would use metal, okay? I think over time, if they keep moving it around, but we helped to mitigate the moving process, put little pads underneath each one of the legs, so it made it easier to move across the tables. Okay, but anyway, so we had to cut that off, and I tell you what, that oak was horrible with that cup. Yes. Yeah. Okay, the question is, common thing that happens, especially during load shedding, people would spill candle wax onto a piece of furniture. And what would be the easiest way to remove that from the piece of furniture? Okay, so if you've got a flat blade, just a normal blade, you could use that to scrape it off. Just carefully scrape that wax off and then clean it off with, if it's a paraffin wax candle, which I guess most of them would be, you could use paraffin to clean that off, and then you can just polish it up afterwards. The other one is you can get the same blades, you can get them in a plastic version. You may have seen them, you get these, it's a standard size blade. It's not like a shaving blade, it's not double-sided, it's got a little ridge at the back of it and the blades at the bottom. And these blade holders, I think they might have some of them here. But you can get a plastic version of that. And then that can be used to scrape that wax off as well. And then again, a bit of paraffin just to clean the rest of the wax, because it'll dissolve and it'll pull that wax residue off, okay? All right, don't heat it up in that, because the chances are that the wax could actually impregnate the top, and then you're sitting with another problem, okay? All right, so yeah, because we get, so that's probably one worth mentioning. You may get furniture where they say, yeah, my granny had it on the farm, and then it arrives to you, and you'll see this, she's got this, there's this dresser with these winged mirrors, with those little special hinges that were on like ratchets, that as you opened it, the mirrors didn't move. Gosh, man, those hinges are worth a fortune if you can find them. But on the table itself, this black wood or whatever has this oil patch, and if you have a look at it carefully, you'll realize that that was the wax from the candle that actually impregnated that wood. Okay, so how do you solve that problem? Well, you do your best effort, okay? So keep on cleaning it with so use liquid paraffin again, and then use just sunlight liquid or something just to keep on cleaning it up, the wax, and then heat it. The wax will then go up to the top again, and just keep on cleaning it. It'll get to the point where you've saturated the wax, but the stain won't be removed. Then what you need to do in that case is don't varnish it. Because the minute you varnish it, you're going to keep seeing that spot. So the only other thing to do is put another oil finish over that. So Danish oil, I wouldn't put the hard coats like the Osmos and the Rubios. I wouldn't put that on. But definitely the Danish oil, if you've got the patience, the linseed oil, boiled linseed, not my favorite, must be honest. You can, and tongue oil, you can put those down. I like my Danish. Put the Danish on, and the Danish will blend into that stain, and the whole table will look even. Okay, so yeah, thanks for that question. Okay, so if that helps you guys at all, that you will definitely come across. Okay, all right. So I hope that helps. All right, so definitely that pet urine story. So we amputated the legs with the little cup wheels, and then we reinstalled a new set of legs at the bottom part. Okay, all right. Other non-repairables. Watch that one carefully. Deforming and warping, especially on tabletops. If that's happened, it's game over. Okay. The only way to repair that is either take the top off, cut that section out, and replace it with a new section. There's nothing else you can do. Absolutely zero. Termites or bugs or whatever, worm or whatever, if they've got into the wood, it's game over, especially down at the coast in KwaZulu-Natal. It's game over. I've got plenty of guys that want to bring their furniture up and ask me to repair, and I don't want it anywhere near my shop. I really don't. It's not worth the risk. So I have a mate down in Durban. I've said to him, please, can you manage that stuff? Because he gets fumigated every 2 months and whatever the case may be. I'm not bringing that up into my shop. I had a client actually come in there with a piece of furniture. I said, where did you bring it from? He said, no, he brought it in from Durban. I said, no, mate, can you move that out quickly? Because that goes in there. I've got wood stored at the back and old wood and whatever. I'm not going to have that get taken out. Okay, it's that quick. Okay, so that was, there was another one I wanted to mention, is pet urine deforming and warping. Oh yes, veneers. Oh my word. If a veneer, gosh, you're going to, if you haven't learned your lesson yet, it's going, believe me, it's going to come your way. You need to know how to identify what is a veneer, and then you need to know how to handle the veneer. Let's just chat about a veneer quickly. How do you identify that there's a veneer top that you're working with? How would you be able to identify that? There are dead giveaways. How would you do that? It's possible because remember you can laminate veneer, so you may pick up the joins. Okay, so that's on the top. How else would you be able to work out that if it was veneer? Possibly, yeah, chips around the side. The other way is that you'll see there's an edge banding. Now, when you look at a piece of wood and you look at the edge of a piece of wood, okay, so there's the grain of the wood, and if you look at the edge, you'll see that the grain follows over onto the side, the end grain. With veneer, you don't typically see that. What you'll see is what's there, you'll see running along there. That'll be a dead giveaway for you that there's something added on. Sometimes maybe the guys did add a 3mm strip on at the back end just to hide that, because sometimes it doesn't look nice, okay? So they want to try and blend it in. So it could be a solid top, but with a little bit of an edge on it. But then the other giveaway is if you look at the side, and if you follow the grain, and you turn over and you look, and you see there's the grain underneath that. If you see there's an edge strip again, but it doesn't follow the grain that's on the top of it, and that doesn't follow the grain that's on the top of it, then it's more than likely going to be veneer. The final way to work it out is if you go underneath. You may just find it's just chipboard that's left over. Very rare. In the early days you would, but you may find that the wood on the top is cherry, and then at the bottom is a kumi or something, a cheap commercial wood, and the two woods don't match each other, okay? Then you know definitely you're dealing with a veneer. How do you work with a veneer? Remember, it's only about 0.6, maybe maximum 1 millimeter thick, okay? So in order to work with a veneer, you don't put a sander on it. You don't touch it with a sander. Then those card scrapers that I told you about now start becoming your friend, okay? Because you've got control. And the minute you start seeing, oh, there's something else poking out underneath this wood, you can stop straight away because there's enough of a patch for you to recover and fix before there's any further damage. Once you've sanded through on veneer, there's no coming back from it. The only way you come back from that is to fix that, sand that entire top and get a new piece of veneer and then have that relaid over the top of it. And then if there's marquetry work inside there, marquetry work being patterns of different colors of wood, those are little pieces of veneer that they put in to make up a pattern, a flower or whatever the case may be. Then once you've messed that other veneer up, that marquetry piece in the middle is now also at risk. How are you now going to fix that up? Okay, so something that you need to be very, very careful of. Identify what you're working with, okay? All right, good. Okay, so we've assessed the damage, so let's move on. Right, reasons for the repair. So look, many things will cause the repair to come into play. The damage might be minor. The furniture may be old and rare. It might have sentimental value for the owner. I've had people bring something in for me. It's got a small scratch on it, but the sentimental value is very high. And then that really, just that scratch alone is not something that they ever want to see. And that needs to be repaired and sorted out quickly. So those would be good reasons for doing the repair. But again, use your judgment. Don't be stubborn, okay? You could easily be losing out if the repair takes too long. Like you see things and you say, oh no, I'm going to tackle this repair. It's like this chap that just walked in now. You know, he showed me the wood. I was trying to work it out. I mean, I don't have my glasses on that I can see a little bit clearer and close up. So I was trying to work out. First of all, it looked like it was MDF until I scratched a little piece off and flaked off. Then I realized straight away that it was a thick varnish or a stained varnish that went over the cherry. So it looks like it's solid. It doesn't feel heavy enough though, but it looks like it's solid cherry. But I need to have a closer look at it. The end grain, I looked at it. I followed the end grain. But you know what? There were guys that were good. Hey? The Italians are masters with veneer. They could actually get veneer out of end grain and stick it on the back of it. It looked like it was part of that. It looked like a solid piece of wood and it was all veneered. Yes? Casey. Thanks, Casey. Yeah, so good point. Repairing furniture is good for the environment. Okay, so we're not taking up landfills with wood and whatever the case, we're turning it into firewood. All right, okay. Thanks, Casey. All right, okay, so those would be the reasons there for the repair. But please be cautious. You know, don't go overboard. Don't take it because, oh yeah, I'm going to make money out of this. That's not your motivation. You must take it because you know you can repair it. The money is the byproduct of the repair job that you're going to do. And then sometimes, man, I had a job that I had to do. I had those rockers. I got them. I looked at it. I quoted them, which was a fair price. But when I got it back to the shop, I didn't know what was going on with them. complete back, all the rungs at the back were loose. The mortise and tenons, every single one of them were loose. So in other words, the back was leaning over like that. The sides were fortunately still tight, or the armrests, because they had little spindles down the side. They were still okay. The springs, as you saw, were quite badly rusted. That was the start. I couldn't identify the word wood. I thought it was oak until eventually when I did sand it, I worked out that it was ash. Okay. When I put the varnish on, it looked like somebody had sprayed something that had silicone in it because it fish-eyed everywhere that I put the varnish on. I had fish-eye patches coming up all over the place. So that means I had to take that varnish off again and then try and clean that silicone off, which was a mission. Thank goodness for shellac. Put the shellac over the top of it. That covered it up, and then we could put the varnish over the top of that. The client was ecstatic. It was black-looking stuff. I don't know what it was. And then the other chair they gave me was standing in a pool of water. It was pine that had rotted. It was like sponge. We had to fix all of that up. But we know what, we fixed it. We got the job done, and we gave it to them. But, man, it got to a point where it was starting to get to me, that it just went on too long, and that everything was just, leapfrogging problems the whole time. It was an absolute challenge. It was not like I didn't know what I was doing. It's just that it became challenging. So the money that I made on that was zero. It was, in fact, I was paying for the job. Okay, so be careful of what you do, all right? So always bear that in mind. If it's a job that you can't manage or tackle, walk away from it. Okay, rather do that. Be honest and walk away. You've got a reputation you want to uphold. Okay, wood furniture repair costs. So assess the damage to determine what it will cost to do the repair. So in order to do that, you'll need to work out your labor costs and then at the same time your material costs. Now, generally speaking, the material costs are very low when it comes to repairing furniture because it's stuff that you would have in bulk. If I say in bulk, you would have bought a 5-liter varnish, you would have bought a length of wood. So you've got the stuff always on hand, okay? And typically, probably by about your third repair, you've paid for everything already. So whatever comes out of that has already been covered. So it's basically profit that you're making. But the profit that you'll be making is on your labor costs. So you need to assess what your labor costs are. What are you charging to do this job? Have you estimated correctly? Did you say it's going to take me 3 hours working on that project at a cost of 600 Rand an hour? That's 1,800 Rand. And then you want to add a little bit of a material cost and then a little bit of overhead for electricity, water, and stuff like that, and burden or rental space or whatever. And then you also want to make a bit of a profit as well. Do you understand? So you need to come out with a reasonable cost. And that's why the motivating factors for the repair, you've got to work out which is the one that's got the high value for you. A sentimental value is priceless. Okay? So there's good money out of it. You're not taking advantage of anybody. If you're good, you're getting good value for money back in return. Okay, that's what's coming to you. All right, your time will be the biggest cost component, like I said, and then again, depending on what they've given you to work with or to repair, you may also find that it might be cheaper to make the item than rather repair it. So sometimes you're going to get something come into your cupboard or something, and you look at it, it's just it's broken. The chipboard has got water, it's now falling apart, it's just flaking off. And you look at this whole thing, and when you've done the costing, just do an estimate in your head. How much will it cost to do the actual repair? I mean, to make a new one. It might be cheaper to go that route, okay? So sometimes there's a judgment call. I can't see sentimental value over something that was made out of chipboard. I really can't. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, you need to assess that. All right, so the next one just takes us to wood furniture repair step by step. So we're going to have a look at the following. So those are the more common problems that we have with repairing furniture. So it's scratches, scuffs, stains, marks, and discoloration. Sorry guys, just give me a tick. All right, so let's go through that and see how we're going to do that repair. Okay, so start off first. So now we're going to have a look at how to do a repair, okay, and guide you with that. So the tools you require. So first of all, a microfiber cloth. Okay, it's important to have one of those on hand. If you have a look at, again, Amazon Take A Lot, in particular, you can buy a kilo of microfiber cloths, which are really worth the money. I think I paid about 125 Rand for a kilo's worth of them. And I use it for everything. It's cleaning up, wiping off hard oils, polishes, whatever the case may be. And when they're finished, don't even bother about getting frugal and trying to wash these things. Just throw them, okay? But really worth the effort. So about a kilo's worth of it is what you should, have it on hand. And they're nice and they're gentle. They don't make scratches and scuffs, so they'll work for you. A wood repair kit, so it may comprise of the following. So we're going to be doing these type of repairs. So wood putty, colored repair compound or wax, a brush, mixing jar, spatula, fine soft brush, paper towel, or clean waste rag. A comment, the spatula that they're talking about. You know what, if you've got kids or grandkids that went to school and did art, they've got those little spatulas that they did to mix the oils and stuff like that. Now they've matriculated, those things are lying somewhere. Ask them for it. If the handles come out of the little, the spatulas come out of the little handle, take some of that epoxy and plug it in there, stick it together, and tomorrow you've got a brand new one. Does that make sense? So grab them. You're going to use these little guys, okay? All right, so then we go to the next one. So step one, clean and wipe the area to be cleaned and to be repaired, okay? So make sure that you do that. So doesn't matter, dishwashing liquid, wipe it up and clean it up with that. Try not to use solvents to clean it, okay? That area. You just want to get the dust out of there, the oils and whatever that can stop you from doing any work and adhering or sticking together or whatever. So clean and wipe the area. Then step two, mix, match, and create the grain pattern. Okay, so take your compound that you're working with. I mean, we've shown you the different compounds there. You may have a little bit of stain that you put in. Mix it up to match. How would you do this effectively? The easiest way to do this, and it's not shown here, is if you get a little piece of plate glass, maybe go to the glass guy near your place. Ask him if he's got an offcut of 10 millimeter thick plate glass or 8 or 4 millimeter. They've got little pieces lying around, but they do nothing with it. Grab that from him and just take some sand, or take your sander with a coarse grit, 60 or 80 grit on it, and just sand those edges, okay, of the glass so that they don't cut you. Then place that glass over the piece that you're going to work on. And when you're busy tinting it up to get to the right color, now you can see visually the matching coming into play. Does that make sense to you? So use that as a mechanism. Once you've got your compound ready, then you take it and then you put it into the hole and you fill it up. Also remember, tweezers are going to be good as well. If there's any little splinters and stuff like that, use a tweezer to take them out, okay? So that you clean everything up. There's nothing loose. Now you're going to fill it up properly, okay? All right, so step 3, you apply your compound, okay, your repair compound. So look, it could be the filler, it could be that Gen Chem that we put a stain into, it could be anything, okay? So apply that compound, all right, and then allow it to repair. Now when you do that, please guys, don't level it and say, oh, I'm going to save myself some sanding time, and then level it. You're going to come back tomorrow, you're going to see it slumped, okay, or not slumped, but sunk. And now how are you going to fill that up? Now you've got to go through that whole process of trying to match it all up again, okay? That matching process can take some time. What I would suggest is that if you've got a family member that's an arty type and they work with colors and stuff like that, let them come and do the mixing for you because their eyes are color keen. They'll do it much quicker than what you can, okay? Unless you work with it all the time, okay? Let them come and do it for you. So you can actually see the patches now being filled in, okay? And it's a pretty close match, okay? All right, so then just a bonus tip, cleaning may restore your furniture. So rather than taking that long-winded route of trying to match it, and then of course when you clean it up, remember now use the card scrapers to level it out and a little bit of fine sandpaper, and then you can put your finish over the top of it and again level it out and so on, okay? So you can go through that process like we spoke a bit earlier. So here's just a tip. Cleaning may restore the furniture. You might not have to go that whole avenue of doing a complete repair to fix things up. Water's your friend in a lot of cases in furniture restoration. Okay, and I'm going to show it to you. So we had a scenario. This is our scenario. This table, it was one of the tables. Gosh, this was an interesting thing. You guys must go and read up on this. In the government departments back in the day, according to your grade that you had in the government department, you were allocated certain types of furniture. So this particular person was a grade 3 because the stamp of the grade 3 is underneath that table. It's a Kia table, solid Kia table. What happened was this table was across the road. There's a company across the road, and they were throwing it onto the back of a truck to take off to the dump. My daughter Casey saw that and said, Dad, they're throwing this table away. I said to the guy, can you bring it on the forklift and just drop it in front of our roller shutters? And the guy did. So we got the table. That's not what it looked like when we got it. But I just want to tell you what happened. We gave it a wash. And what we did was you used trisodium phosphate, TSP. You may have heard of it, TSP. Trisodium phosphate. So some guys are familiar with it. Let me explain to you what the product is. I have a property, and I had a tenant that was in there, and the guy never opened the windows, but he smoked like a chimney. So when he moved out, and I went into the property, everything that was white was yellow. So basically, the walls were like an oatcake color, like a creamy, pale yellow color, but the ceiling was the same color as the wall, but it was supposed to be white. And all the air vents had these nicotine stains going up. And anyway, I happened to go overseas at the time, and when I was in the UK, I went to one of the Dulux paint shops. I mentioned to the guy, I have this problem back home. He said, no, it's a common problem in the UK. He said, no, these guys never open a window over winter time, and the whole family will smoke. He says, so they've got products to clean. I said, what do you use? He said, no, they use trisodium phosphate. Or he said to me, TSP. I said, no, I've got no clue. He said, where are you from? I said, South Africa. He said, oh, he said, because the Americans will know what TSP is. It's a very common product. It comes in a pre-liquid solution already. He said, no, just he gave me the name, trisodium phosphate. I came back, I bought the stuff. It's in powder form. So it's, there you can see Na3PO4. So sodium phosphate. Okay, trisodium, because there's 3 of them. That's why I said, don't use this stuff on oak. So what we did was we just washed it, okay, took a scrubbing brush and we washed it with trisodium and then rinsed it off. Literally washed it and rinsed it off. I mean, you can also use sunlight liquid. I've just suggested that. But don't flood it. You know, obviously you're not going to let this thing stand in water. You're just going to wash it down. If you happen to have grey patches of wood, you could use oxalic acid. Have you heard of that? Now, oxalic acid is very good for reviving wood. So typically, if you go into a paint store and you're looking for a wood reviver, the Woodok has got a little 1 liter tin, and it's very lightweight. And inside there's a sachet of powder. And I think they give you a brush, if I'm not mistaken, but it's a little kit in a 1 liter tin, and it's called the Woodok Wood Reviver. That has got the trisodium phosphate in it. And have you got your? Where is it? Where is it? Where? Is that it? Oh, so now it's in a 5 liter tin. It used to be in a 1 liter tin. So this is trisodium phosphate. Oxalic acid. That's inside here. So if you buy the oxalic acid separately, I'm not going to tell you the price difference, but you can go do the math. But there, just feel the weight. No, hand it around. Let the guys look. So that's the Wood Reviver. And Woodok's the only company that I know of that actually does something like that out here. Okay, nobody else is doing that. But yeah, so bottom of your doors where it gets wet, you then wash it with that. Follow the instructions, wash it with that, let it soak in, clean it off, and then you can re-varnish it. It'll actually revive it and bring the color back into that piece of wood. So it's almost like a bleach. Not a bleach, but almost like a bleach, okay? So there it is. So that's the chemical there. So it's chlorine. You can see hydrogen, oxygen. So you know what's going on in there. If any of you are sort of chemically minded, you'll know there's some serious activity going on there with the lignin to revive it and bring its color back into play, okay? All right, so that works. So we've got that in the shop, and that's what I use to clean things off. And, you identify what the problem is and you sort it out. So let me just show you this. Okay, so it was a bit of a tussle as to whether I was going to show you this slide now or after, but let's show you. This is what it looked like. It was so cool to do this. You can see there's the before and after. That's exactly what that table looked like. Look at this. It was such, you know what, if you get your kicks out of cleaning stuff, that's exactly what it looked like. So we cleaned one half with the trisodium phosphate. Okay, so you can see the clear out there. You can see the white and the brown. And then that's what it looked like before. That's what that whole table looked like. And we washed it and cleaned it like that, okay? Then at the same time, there was a whole lot of scratches on it. So as the water got into the wood, wherever the compressed fibers were, it decompressed them. So the top was practically flat. We just had to give it a proper, clean off the varnish, whatever varnish was left behind, get all that off, and then just re-varnish it again. The table was beautiful. But that's really the whole idea. That's what I wanted to show you. So there you go. That's what a bit of a wash can do. So don't be shy. Often we take out a power hose and put it on a piece of furniture. Just kind of don't do it on pine because it will cause a disaster. But there's woods like oak and stuff that will manage that process. Put a power hose. Don't go full ball on it. Just, be gentle. Put it on a medium and then wash it off and then clean it up and then you're good to go. Don't be shy to do it. Just don't leave it soaked in water, okay? All right, so then let's have a look at another one. The more difficult repairs on wood furniture. You know, for example, yeah, these are more complex. So that's wood hole repairs, crack repairs, chip repairs, dent repairs, okay? So those are things that you want to have a look at. So let's step through that and see what we need to do there. All right, so what would you need? Tools again, microfiber cloth, a thin tip splinter tweezers. You should have that already in your shop, okay? And then my magnifying glass if you at that stage of life. All right, some sandpaper, and then a wood repair kit. Again, same as what we used before, wood putty, colored repair compound, or a wax stick, brush, mixing jar, spatula, and then paper towel and clean waste rag, okay? All right, so let's go and have a look and see how we go about that. And I hope this will help you again. I mean, I think you guys are familiar with this, but let's have a look. So prepare by cleaning and removing any chips and splinters. Okay, so clean that area up. It's almost like you take it into surgery. You know, you're going to do this professionally. Just put the gloves on and then you go. All right, once you've done that, you use the putty to fill any gaps wider and deeper than 6 millimeters, okay? All right, so it's a two-step process. So what they're going to do is a wood filler or a putty. Just remember, the bigger the diameter and depth, the longer it takes for the stuff to dry, your putties or whatever that you put in there. Another thing is the window putty works well, the bag of window putty, because remember it's got linseed oil in it with clay. When you put that in, but the only thing is that it doesn't dry fast enough, okay? That's your downside. That linseed oil in that clay can take up to a month to dry off properly. So that's why we start using the more modern fillers and stuff. So maybe that Genchem would work for you. So put a bit of a layer in there first, and then come back and then do another layer. Don't be in a rush to get that job done, unless you have to. All right, mix your colors and then match with your wood. So again, you may fill it up with filler and then put your color compound over the top of it, okay? So that's also a possibility, so that can play out for you. So 2 stages, so let the one dry and then put the other one. It's not going to happen within the same process. It's going to happen in the same day. This is going to happen over probably 2 or 3 days. Right, apply and repair the repair compound. So there you can see the compound being matched in color and then being applied. And then add layers of repair compound as needed. So depending on the size of the hole, you'll need to do this in stages, okay? You may find that if you have got a matching wood, you could try and cut out a piece and try and put it back in. But now listen carefully to me. There's a thing called a plug and hole scenario. Basin, hole, plug. Plug fits in the hole. In the routing world, we do the same thing. We create the hole, and then we create the plug. And we drop the 2 in. And we can make that match so that it matches with the grain, and it's perfect, that a keen eye will pick up that there's a repair job done. You've seen the butterflies or the bow ties, butterflies? It's a plug and hole. Does it make sense to you? So you may want to approach that and have a look at that as a repair methodology, okay? That uses guide bushings for your router to perform that task. So if it's a fairly big hole that needs, or big area that's damaged, maybe that plug and hole scenario is what you're going to do. Now, don't always think of it as a circle. Plug and hole can be any shape or form. You just want to get that thing fixed up, okay, and then match it with the wood. That's why, for the most part, we don't throw our scrap pieces of wood, because there's always one day that we're going to need it, okay? All right, always that one day. All right, so there we go. So in this case, use your compound, add it up. Allow the layers to dry between application, because you want the mechanical bonding to take place, not chemicals, okay? And then once you've done that, you can then sand it off. And as you can see here, fairly light little repair job, okay? So difficult to pick up. A keen eye will see it, all right? But that's not always going to be the solution, okay? But do a judgment call, okay? If it's a fairly big, I would say if the repair is going to go into a 20 to a 30 millimeter diameter, then I'm going to do a plug and hole scenario on it, okay? And then fix it up. Because it's obvious that whatever you do, you're going to see the repair. But the plug and hole will mitigate that, because you can get the grain to line up. You can go find the right. So you might need to take out all your pieces of scrap and try and line it up until you eventually find one more or less that fits, and then you can lay it over. And I promise you, for the most part, sometimes the clients come in and they have a look and they say, "Where was the repair done?" They said, "Yeah, it's around about there." You say, "Oh, no, rotate at the table." So you confuse them, the heck out of them, and they say, "No, man, where's the repair?" And then only when you show it to them and point it out, they look and they say, "Oh, yeah, there we go. More business, eh?" That's what you're aiming for. Right, as usual, bonus tip. Water or steam will remove the dents. Okay? All right. So a steam iron in the shop is not a bad thing. Just put a thin piece of cloth put the steam on and steam over that dent. It'll decompress that those compressed fibers. It'll swell them. Please don't sand them immediately. Wait for it to dry, and then you go and sand. Because if you sand it, when it dries, it slumps back or shrinks back, and you've got a little divot in the table. It's the same as the guys that use biscuits to laminate long boards. They put it together, they butter up the biscuit with glue. I don't know why, because it's only used for alignment. They put it in. What happens is the moisture in the glue's got to go somewhere. You'll see, if you look carefully, you can see little bumps all the way down the joint. The guys don't pick it up. They then sand it flat, looks perfect. And then a month later, the client gets hold of you and they say, but there's divots all the way down on the seam of the joint. What's happened? Now you try and fix that. Because when you put water in, you see these little puddles all the way down. How do you fix that up? Okay. Yeah, well, you do. You cut the two sides around it and then re-laminate and add another piece on somewhere else. Okay. Or in the same spot. Does that make sense? Don't butter up your biscuits, okay, when you put them in. All right. You're just sticking them in just to help you line up. The edges need to be buttered or glued up, if that makes sense to you. Does it make sense? All right, be careful of what you do there. All right, water or steam will remove. Please don't use those steam machines that you get. I tried that. Oh, man, that does more harm than anything else. Because it's got pressure underneath it, got underneath it, it lifted the varnish and steamed it off. Okay, so it made a bigger mess. But certainly, sometimes what I do is, it's going to happen. You're busy on a big project in the shop, and you walk past and you drop something by mistake onto the top. And you look at this. You know what? All you do is just take a damp cloth and put a damp cloth over it and walk away. Come back later and you have little dents out of the thing. Okay, it's done. Many a time we've got to do that before we ship. It's so stupid. Or before we finish. I've got to go through there with a raking light to check all the little dents. You'll be amazed at how many dents you put in a piece of wood in your own shop. Absolutely amazed, okay? So manage that process, okay? All right, so here's another one. Just a couple of ones. All right, so wood furniture restoration, before and after. You can just see there's a stain mark that came up, that lifted up the stain or whatever, and then the after. Okay, I mean, it's very difficult, but just the after there. Now, my daughter, we had to make some trays for a client, and I used dominoes on pieces of wood. And when I'm trying to think of the word. When I cut the boards into thinner pieces, okay, to make the base of the trays, I cut through the middle of a dowel. So there was a dowel on two sides. And I looked at it in the middle of the board. Can you believe it? So the top is fine, but underneath it, you can clearly see this dowel with the glue around it. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, oh, you've got to be kidding me. So I said I know that this is a repair technique, that you can paint the repair job. So it matches the wood and it looks like the wood, and you can make the grain and everything. So Casey's the artistic one. So I said to her, grab this quickly. I'll fill it up, flatten and sand it. Can you paint over it? And it's a pity. I can't find a picture of it anywhere. I would love to have shown you. And she actually painted it to match the grain. And it was quite, it was a fairly big gap, about that big. And she painted it. So when you look at this thing, you can't see that there was actually a domino that was in that position. So she painted over that and matched it with the grain and everything on top of the wood. So that's another technique that you could probably consider. Okay, not an unusual technique at all. I've seen some guys do it, but we tried it out and it certainly worked. It was successful. Okay. All right, you know the story. Dogs chewed the leg. This happens on doors. Doors are easier to repair, I think, than this. But okay, so for the most part, this was just some good sanding that was done. And then these pieces over here, you know what? It's not worth trying to, listen, a rule on a leg. If a leg is cracked, it needs to be replaced. Okay? If a leg is broken, it needs to be replaced. Because you'll never be able to fix it up. Don't think of putting dowels in there and this is going to, once it's gone, it's gone. Okay? So it's a lot of work and effort to fix it up. But in this case, you know what, just sand it. Just make it look appealing. Put a dark finish over the top of it, and you can barely work out what's going on there. Okay? The cosmetics of it is sorted out. It's not the best solution, but it is a solution that's better than what you had before. All right, so the other one. Okay, this is veneers. You can see the veneers at the top here. Again, put filler in and then just stain it over with a darker stain, or a different colored stain as opposed to the original on that cabinet, and then you'll be able to cover it. Maybe you might have to paint the grain in on that one as well, but it'll look the part. It'll behave the part, okay? So it'll look good enough. Then varnish it properly, and then you're good to go. Also remember these little decorations that you have. There's a proper name for it. I forget it now. You know, get in there with a brush and a bit of water and brush it, scrub it, to get all that gunk out of there. Some of those things are really dirty and bad. And then when you've finished it, take a blower and then blow through it, or a hairdryer, or whatever you're using, and blow it out and dry it up. Okay, so it doesn't get a chance to deform or anything. Okay. Yeah, you could, but the problem is, you cut that out. You've got to now scrape that other part off and then try and get a match to put it back in. It's probably easier just to fill it up, fix up whatever's damaged, and then stain it. You probably get away with it just by putting a stain over it. Just. Yeah, it's a case of assessing it. Sometimes there are cases where you've got to lift that veneer up completely and then put a new piece down. But always look at it, Make a good judgment call. I mean, this could have just been maybe it's just the color itself that's come off. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Depends on it. So make your assessments correctly. What is the value of this item? Is it an antique? Is it a sentimental value? What is it? Is it a piece of furniture from the 80s that's a little bit slightly damaged and just deserves to get patched and cleaned? Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, sure. Agree with you. Yeah. No, fair enough. But do make the assessment, Work out what is the best route to go. Okay. I mean, sometimes you get a situation like this where it's so bad that you actually have to remake the whole complete panel, and put that back. Remember the chipboard we had in the 60s and earlier is the glues and the formaldehydes weren't of quality that we've got today. That stuff just started disintegrating over time. So a lot of those repairs come from that time. But you know what? It's just worth putting a whole new replacement in. Taking it out. These you can recover because these are solid mold. Depends again. They could have been cast. There was a stage they went through where the guys from India were casting them and then selling them off to the carpenters and the cabinet makers. Yeah, or plaster or whatever it was. Yeah, gosh. I mean, I get a guy that comes in to see me once. He's a Turkish bloke. He says, oh no, this is his family's heirlooms and whatever, and he brings us stuff in. So I start working on it only to find out that it's just the carcass of the legs. And the guys used those molds with that wooden glue scenario. And then they would just jam it onto the edges of the legs. And then they sprayed it gold. So it looks like the real McCoy. But when you start looking at it closely, you work out exactly what's going on. So yeah, a lot of trickery going on out there. But yes, I agree with you. But assess what you're doing. And then it's making money versus giving them a solution. Okay? All right, here we go. Okay, so there's a wood laminate restoration. So in this case, it depends on how high up this goes. But yes, there's patches that you would insert and put in there. That's exactly what you were implying. So you would do something like that, okay? So yeah, all doable. But you've got to just see what you get and then work with it. Always be flexible about the problem. Try and find the best solution though. The one that's the most cost effective for you as well, okay? All right, so not to dwell on this forever and for too much. This is one of the books I have in my collection, and I think that this is probably one of the better books. It's by William Cook. I think probably one of the masters of furniture and antique restoration. He worked specifically for the Smithsonian and all their smaller museums. He did all the repair work and everything on that. He's probably one of the best. The tools and stuff, if you go through the book and have a look at the tools that he's got and the bespoke tools that he made and he used for the restoration work and so on, it's just incredible. I must say that's one thing, we're not as spoilt as the Americans in terms of furniture. After they colonized the United States, those cabinet makers and furniture makers that went over to the United States are I don't want to say best of the breed, but those guys were good. They made proper furniture. I mean, it was because the wood was in absolute abundance and all the different types of woods that they could get their hands on and the stuff that they could manufacture. So from the shaker furniture, go and read about that and how it was made and why it was made. They were the first company that first place, let's call it a company that made a catalog that you could buy the furniture off a catalog. and they numbered it, so you could buy a number 7 cabinet or a jelly cabinet or whatever the case was. You could buy that as a shaker style piece of furniture, very simple, very plain, at a very good price. So it's worth having a look at it. We just do not get to see some of these things. Yeah, I mean, go to Cullinan House and go and have a look. I've done work for them. Go and have a look at what they've got. It doesn't even compare. It pales in comparison to what you see there. And even in Europe, remember these guys came from Europe. We pale in that respect. Really do. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Yeah. Yeah, simplistic. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not doing that at all. Yeah. No, what we do is not very artistic, okay? Where they had different people doing different things because they had all the differences coming in. Majority came from Germany. So, but the shaker movement was an English movement. It was a Scottish woman who took that over to the United States and made the furniture based on that style, came up with the idea of cataloging it and selling it. Whereas the German builders were the ones that were very artistic with all this type of design. That came from them. Two different movements. And the French, yeah, to a large degree. We've got, well, okay, Europe, in Europe, but the majority came from Germany. Okay, now I'm not going to argue with that, but the majority, 75% came from Germany. The rest of it was small bits that were added in. Our movement was people leaving, coming across here with simple things. It was expensive to get here. And that's why if you look at the chests that they brought and the cabinets that they brought, very simple. I mean, the way they were made, I've got one I've got to repair at the moment. And I've just had a look at it. I mean, while it had the Queen Anne legs, little short Queen Anne legs at the bottom of it, and it had the dovetails on it. Those dovetails were basically, can you quickly do a box for me because I want to go on the great track across the Drakensberg. That's what it was. So it was either dovetails, combination of dovetails and nails, and then the boards weren't even, the sides were laminated with some glue, which I guess would be hide glue. But underneath, no chance for that. It was going to be expensive. So it was just cobbled together and then pieces of wood put across it at the bottom in strips. But this thing could hold a ton, so, and the fittings, I mean, the brass work and stuff from the blacksmith who did that work, and to cobble that out so quickly was just incredible. At a cheap price, that was the other thing. So yes, I hear you, and I agree with you. Mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It had to be. I'm going on the groot track and you build me a chest. Yeah. I mean, the wood's that thick. Yeah. 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 No, sure. No, I agree with you. You can actually tell the history from looking at the wood. I mean, the furniture. You can say, that came from moving and that came from settling. If you go down to the Cape, you'll find more stuff there that's traditional style in the Cape because nobody moved. So, yeah, no, you're right, 100% correct. I'll have a chat with you about this Afrikaner movement. Okay. All right, good. Okay, so please, that book is probably one of the better ones. And then, again, if you're a YouTuber and you try and look at what's going on out there, there's two guys that are really worth looking at. It's Tom Johnson and Scott Bennett. You may have heard of them. You may have watched them. Scott's got a very even tone voice. The old man, Tom Johnson, he's okay. You kind of look more like Tom Johnson to me. I always thought it was. When you walked out, I thought, no, it can't be. So, but they're good guys. They're patient. The videos are long. Okay, so you need to really sit down and have a bit of patience and time to watch, but you'll learn a ton, eh? All right, okay, so. So finally, what would you do? What would you do? What would you do? Get some sellotape. Yeah, my boy. I don't know. Okay. Come on, what would you do? Have a bra. Okay, look, for the most part, for the most part, you'll probably find that the frame is good, but to start off with, the frame is bad, because you shouldn't be framing a tabletop, okay, ever. Shouldn't be doing it. But irrespective of whether these boards are engineered boards or solids, if I'm looking at the furniture around it and the style, that's solid boards, but that is ruined. That is cupped and bowed and bent like nobody's business. There's no recovering that. Don't come and tell me, yeah, we'll cut it up into strips and then glue them back again. Okay, well, good for you, okay? Yeah, or sunk with the Titanic, okay, something like that. But there's no coming back from that, okay? So that top would need to be replaced effectively, okay? If you thought about replacing it, well, then you're on the right track. You're getting a good idea of what to do. So you've got to do a proper judgment call. Like I say, you've got to look at the stuff. You know, sometimes it's, you don't be rushed into making a decision. I was also a fool, and, you know, fools rush where angels fear to tread is the saying, eh? You know, you look at something and you say, oh, yeah, I can fix that. No, how long? Oh, okay, take me about a day. How much? Oh, it's 1,200 rand. Get back, it's taking you a week. It's cost you a fortune in trying to get materials, and it just didn't work. But you know what? What did you get out of that, which was priceless, is the education, okay? Stop acting a fool, okay? And start looking at things and saying, you know, a guy will give you something and say, yeah, that's just what's broken. And say, no, my mate, bring it to the shop and let's have a proper look at it, okay? And then you, no, don't do that. So, no, I'm going to give it a tight tug and see what's going on here, okay? I want to know where it's broken, where it's loose. I just so wish I took pictures of that chair that was it was soaked in water. And they gave it to me. It was dry. I'm not knowing it. The thing was like, it was a pine, but it was like sponge. That's how rotten it was. But there's muti and stuff that you can put in there, inject it, and it'll tighten it up. It'll be fine. But be careful of what you do and think about what you're doing, okay? All right, okay, so that's where we've landed. Okay, what are we doing for time there? Okay, all right. So that was sort of the journey. If it's what you were expecting, then good. If it wasn't, well, then I don't know. Your expectations were much higher. But I hope that by just talking about the tool side of things, I'm hoping that that has kind of put you on the right path in terms of knowing and understanding what you need to work with and stuff like that, okay? There's a whole lot of other tools. Trust me, there are tons of tools that come on top of all of that. But I mean, I make and design custom furniture, so this is easy for me to slot it in. It's a good revenue stream, I'll be very honest with you, repairing furniture. If you know how to do it, if you've been a woodworker for, even as a hobbyist for many years, you know, the techniques will be pretty much in your mind. You'll know how to fix things up and how to, because you've made mistakes and you've had to fix your mistakes. That's basically what you're going to be doing in the repairing of this. So, like I said, the stuff at Cullinan House, there's some really good furniture there. I had the opportunity to repair some of the work there as well, okay? And I'm a bit of a forger, so a very keen eye for forgery. So I can make things that looks exactly like the original. So there's things that I fixed up that people would never be able to pick it up. You know, try and get pieces of wood. I'll go to rummage in a bin somewhere until I find exactly the piece I'm looking for. Okay, so you get things patched and fixed up, and then, yeah, you're good. All right. Okay, so guys, I hope that was something that you were expecting. Any comments, anybody? Yeah, good. You know, if you're not on the mailing list for Hardware Center, please, before you leave, maybe just see Geordie or the guys at the counter. Get onto the mailing list so they can just mail you and let you know when there's other workshops. But I do urge you, for the one that's coming up on the 28th of September with Dylan van Graan, please try and make an effort to attend that. That's to deal with shellac, so that you can just learn about this product. It's been around for as long as we can remember and think. It's going to be extremely beneficial to you, something that you shouldn't be without in the shop, okay? I know you can buy shellac in a tin, but go and mix it yourself, and it works out far cheap. I don't know what a bag costs these days. $3.95. Yeah, anything from $2.20 to $3.95. That'll be the de-waxed one. Okay, so yeah, they work. Don't buy ready-made. Pascal make a ready-made shellac, but you know what? You put it in the tin, the alcohol evaporates eventually, and you got. Just know that when it does evaporate and it goes a little bit treacly, just add a bit more methylated spirits back into there again, and you've got your product back, okay? But you know what? You paid for it, now it's gone. Keep a bottle. I find an Nescafe bottle manages that much better than a tin, okay? And keep it with you. And a nice little soft brush, and it does the job, okay? It really does the job. All right, guys, there we go. So I hope for the Godfathers, you guys, you can join the team as well. Hope you guys learned something and got something out of it. And then for the rest of you. Otherwise, thanks for coming along. And we hope, and young man, hope to see you again, eh? All right, it was a bit much, eh? Oh, do you want to use stuff? Machines? Oh, this is the wrong one for that. Come and ask your dad to bring you when we do the cabinet build. Normally it's the first weekend, first Saturday of the month. So get on the mailing list so that they can, yeah, okay. And then just pick it up from there, okay. I think, okay. Cheers, my mate. Thanks for coming. Okay, let me just say goodbye to everybody. All right, okay, everybody. And for those of you out there that were watching this, hope it was informative. We try to change the format a little bit so you can see the slides a bit clearer. I hope that worked out for you. Otherwise,